Good evening, good evening to all of you, the loyal opposition. A pleasure to be back with you again tonight. I just want to confirm that you're hearing me a-okay. Just checking in on my technology to make sure that I'm getting proper bandwidth and that you're hearing all right. So if you could just confirm that, I would appreciate that so very, very much. Just making sure that all of these aspects are engaged. If you can just let me know. Good evening to all of you that are joining us tonight. Of course, it's great to see you again, Sir Alfred Benjamin, Emerson Bab. Just waiting for an ID that you're getting me, you're hearing me clearly, and you're getting a good proper picture. I got to try and pull it up myself on my technology, because I always try to follow what's going on my devices. So I'm just confirming that with you so that I know it looks like everything is going okay. Yep, it looks that way. Thank you, Marcia. Tony Paris, great to have you. ADG and Sandra Brewster. Let me just slide back up to the top because some of you have been on here since 5:43. Cecilia Miller, Junie Rock, and oh dear, let me slide down. It's me. I don't know who it's me. If it's me too. Good evening to you. And Queen B, CG, Ryan Rock, Gel Biz, good evening to you. Mystic Angel, great to have you with us again. Joyanne Faith, Gel Biz, Owen Hines. Marcy, I know you're going to keep me on my toes, but I'm going to try to be a little earlier with my national anthem on this occasion. Marcia, so great to have you with us. Victorious Queen, FX Trading BB, Sandra Brewster, Stefano Demara, and I'm just sliding right on down to see all of you. Sandra Brewster, Bonnie Springer, Ryan Rock, Pauline Maynard. My good evening, and I think I said FX Trading BB already, but if I didn't, great. Thank you so much for confirming that, FX. Great. And Beverly Prescott, Sandra Watkins. Great to have you all with us tonight. Well, I tell you, tonight is going to be quite an informative show, quite a hot show, I think. We're going to have a great time. And I happen to be watching the show, last night's show, and I must say it was one of the best shows we've had, in my view. Why? Because the children, the young people were on, and I mean, what for such young children, in the area of 11 years old, 10 years old, 12 years old, they were sharing such tremendous insight and tremendous information as to what they expected of our fathers. So before I forget, let me wish belated Father's Day greetings to all of the fathers on the show and all the fathers that will be joining later on, maybe in viewing this show tonight. I didn't get the chance last night to do that. So I'm taking the opportunity tonight to just wish belated Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. But I will tell you that if you watched the show last night, I was so blessed. I was so proud. To hear the children and to listen to the children, it's really important that we pay attention. And there's some comments I'm going to make tonight in terms of the government that are not going to be very flattering, because I believe government has a tremendous responsibility in terms of setting an environment for children, helping to set that environment for children in a country by providing the type of economic support for parents, especially those who are working. And I'm going to share with you why and how I think that. But as I was watching the show last night, I made a couple of notes. I can't remember who it was that spoke of it. I think it was one of the videos that was shown, and they spoke of this parental coalition. And I want to get straight to that tonight. And there was another one I was watching a minute ago on my screen to do with all these days of celebration for the alphabet group and these people that just out of their minds, and I must tell you, there is something I learned down through the years. I sold cars. I was involved in the automotive industry for many, many years. and I sold vehicles. And one of the things I learned, and I've always tried to tell my clients, is before you do anything with your car, read the owner's manual. Now, I am going to come back to this in just a minute, but I want to redeem the time tonight. And Marcia, I'm going to go with the national anthem a lot earlier tonight than I have any other night. And I don't know if you're hearing me, Dave, but I think I'm going to let that national anthem roll at this time. So if you can just release it, Dave, and let's honor our country, let's honor our flag, let's honor our national pledge. Ladies and gentlemen, let's stand to attention tonight for the national anthem of Barbados. Well, amen, amen, amen. Wow. We pledge allegiance to our country, Barbados, and to our flag, to uphold and defend their honor, and by my living, to do credit to my nation wherever I go. Good night again to all of you joining us on the Loyal Opposition, the Coalition of the Righteous. A pleasure to have every single one of you back with us tonight. And as I mentioned a little earlier, I am bringing belated Father's Day greetings to all of you men, all of you fathers, all of you stand-in fathers, because sometimes the women have to carry that role. And I listened to the show last night, and I must tell you, I can't possibly comment on 3 hours of that show in such a short space of time as I have tonight. But I found it was a tremendous show just to sit and listen to the young people, the 11 years old, saying what they expect of us as fathers and even as adults. You know, the Jesuits have a saying, and it goes like this. It said, give us a child for the first 7 years, and I will show you the man. Give us the child for the first 7 years, and I will show you the man. I was particularly blessed with the aspect of one of the videos that spoke to the matter of a parental coalition between mother and father. And let me be clear, that is God's design. There is nothing that you can add to it that comes from the maker. It comes from somewhere else, right? You know, as I was mentioning a few minutes ago, I was involved in the automotive industry for many, many years. And car manufacturers always deliver a vehicle with an owner's manual, always do. And you are advised when you receive ownership of that vehicle to read the manual. And I remember, I was very instrumental in getting our judges into the BMW 7 Series. And of course, that continued for a number of years until we got to the point of some very technological BMW 7 Series, and in which, for example, there was a process that you had to follow when you stopped the car and you're getting ready to get out of it. And that process was you had to put the car in park. There was no automatic transmission lever like before. It was now with a handle. And you had to hold a little clip on the center console and pull it for the electronic handbrake. And if you didn't follow that process and you pull the clip first and then you put it into park, it would show a malfunction on the dashboard. And that happened on several occasions. And when it happened, I knew that the drivers had not read their manual. I even had I wouldn't even call his name. I even had a very well-known media expert in the country purchase one of my cars. And he called me to tell me he had a flat tire, and there was nowhere in the manual that addressed how to change the flat tire of the car. And I said to him, I said, if you had read the manual, you would realize that in Germany, in the European market, I don't think they refer to the tires as tires. They refer to them as wheels. And so you'd have to look in wheels to see where it was. Of course, I got myself a free lunch as a result, because that's what I said. If I come and it's in the manual, you owe me a free lunch, and I got a free lunch. The point I'm making is that every manufacturer produces a manual, even for household appliances. And if you don't use it as you should, it's considered an abuse of the item, and you'll destroy it. And more often than not, the manufacturer will not cover it under the warranty. Well, folks, God made man. I don't care what anybody thinks. That's not an issue with me. That's entirely up to you. I don't know how anybody can think there is not a designer when you look at the world, when you look at the human body, when you look at the makeup, when you look at the repair mechanism of the human body, when you look at the healing mechanism, when you look at the neurotransmitters in the brain and how it functions. And I'll get to that in a minute when I talk about government's responsibility in providing a safe and healthy environment for people to operate in, right? And I really believe that if we simply followed the manual for humanity is the book, and he knows what he's talking about. He made the product, and the product is humanity. And if you try to use a manual for a Toyota with a BMW, you're going to have a problem, a big problem. But we want to do that with something as intricate and as involving as a human being. Do we understand who we are? Does the government understand who the people are? Now, just as I was preparing for the show, I was trying to find a video. Many years ago, there used to be an ad that came up on our CBC screen with Nelson Mandela with a child. And the thing that has stood out to me over the years is the child standing next to Nelson Mandela, and he makes this statement in his African accent. He says, "We did not ask to be here. We did not ask to be here." And that is so true. So that children should never be used as weapons by either parent for the advancement of either parent's interests. And I listened to that show last night, and I listened to the children speak and express themselves. One young man said the boys were soft because, they didn't have that father figure, and they were unmannerly, I think is one of the things he said. But you see, we keep adapting global international agendas that simply do not fit in the societal development of Barbados. And our government has a responsibility. Let me stick a pin right in here now and deal with this. Government has a responsibility to provide a pleasant environment for the citizens to exist and live in. I have heard a lot of talk about non-communicable diseases. And I wonder how much of the government understands, and how many of the psychologists and advisors understand how important matters such as stress and depression are in terms of things like Alzheimer's, dementia, and even diabetes. I wonder how many of them understand how the human body operates, how it works from up here, not just in the physical realm, but how the hormonal releases function when you have a thought. And that thought is expressed in terms of in the brain and what's released into the body. And when something negative is released into the body automatically, based on its design, goes into defense mode. And so it begins to protect itself. It begins to ensure that things do not continue to happen that are to the detriment of the body. And so government has a responsibility in providing economic environments for people to have proper paid wages. They expect where people can have proper access to funding and financing to do their businesses, where people can have access to proper pricing, where you will take down the VAT that you said you were going to take down when you came to office, which you didn't, which will help to reduce the stress and depression that many of our Barbadian households are going through, simply because, for example, if you talk to most, I think they call them millenniums or something of that nature, most of them are fighting just to keep ends together. They're not even giving a lot of thought about buying a house because they're trying to keep food on the table. They're trying to keep their children in school, buy uniforms, pay for books, pay school fees, pay for the transportation on the buses, and maintain their own relationship in a household that is under pressure because of the financial environment that the government has provided. And I say without any apologies, because government can act to control the increase in light and power rates, because the government can call the shots. If the people who own the light and power don't like it, sell your shares and get out of the country and turn it over to somebody else. They can make a decision in terms of controlling the aspects of the technological accessibility and the cost of it. That is in government's capacity. They can make the decision in terms of what is duty paid. Do you know, if you walk into the average supermarket, we are always talking about non-communicable diseases. We're talking about hypertension. We're talking about obesity. And yet I can walk in the supermarket and pay less for mac and cheese than I can for a piece of cauliflower, which is considerably more healthy for me to use. And as a result of it, because Barbadian households are under so much pressure financially, they can't afford to be eating carrots as they used to, beet as they used to, cabbage as they used to, cauliflower as they used to. It's easier for them to pick up a can of this or a can of that or whatever it is. As a matter of fact, we now see government, and I passed a couple of places that I could not believe my eyes to see that they obviously have recalibrated the aspect of what the property or the land is being used for, because I can see good agricultural land being converted into housing. And I am saying, what madness is this? Doesn't the government understand that if you can reduce your import bill, you actually earn foreign exchange because you don't have to spend it? I have to control myself because I'm getting very passionate about this. Anybody can see that, man. If I don't have to spend it, I earn it. So if I don't have to pick up all this money and continuously send it overseas, because you can't pay outside of Barbados in Barbados dollars. The only place you can change a Barbados dollar outside of Barbados is in the airport at Miami. You can't take it into a single store in America and spend it. You can't take it into a single store in the United Kingdom and spend it, or in Canada and spend it. The only place you can get it changed is in the airport at the Cambio. After that, it isn't worth the paper it's printed on. But yet, we keep increasing the amount of land we're taking out of agriculture into housing, and then we talk about sustainable food supplies in Barbados. We should be looking after providing proper food in our country before we even talk about exporting it. It's foolishness to talk about exporting sweet potatoes, and you can't even maintain the level of sweet potatoes that the people in Barbados need to have to consume. Yams and eddos and all the other things, we raise, we grow. When last have you passed, we used to pass property and CP trees on the side of the road. You all remember those days? You used to be able to pick the peas off the pea trees off the side of the road. That was a time when you can pick gooseberries. And you remember the cherry, the Barbados cherry, which I am told is one of the richest sources for vitamin C on the planet. Acerola cherries that were very unique to Barbados. I think there was only one or two other places in the world where this happened. So the government has a responsibility to provide the type of environment that will reduce stress, that will reduce depression, that will reduce the sense of a loss of control among the people, where they feel as though they're going nowhere quickly. And a lot of our young upcoming couples have given up. They have given up on their future in terms of owning a home and all of that, because it's so expensive to maintain their children. And the prime minister talks about increasing how many children we have so we can increase the labor force. But which parent, which couple is going to be interested in that when they can hardly keep their household together with one child or two children? And you want to increase the amount of children that they have to bring into this life in order to build the workforce for your country in the future. That's why I say it's government's responsibility to provide that type of an environment where people can earn a proper income, where they can establish their businesses without all the nonsensical red tape that is needed. I mean, folk, these are the realities. And you know, I saw someone in the chat yesterday reference the church. Let me explain to you why you are not seeing the church. You're not seeing the church because, generally speaking, the church only sees its role as getting people saved spiritually, getting them out of hell and into heaven, and developing a discipleship mentality that deals primarily in the spiritual realm. The problem there is that even God himself speaks quite clearly about the practical activation of what he has said. It is not enough to pray and rapidly express things out of your mouth. He says, if you will observe to do, and he repeatedly says that when I say something, the only time it becomes of value to you from the spiritual perspective is when you do it. So a lot has been put into the word of God to do with planting gardens and reaping a produce and developing aspects of business. And you know, a lot of people don't realize that for the majority of his life, Jesus Christ was not a spiritual individual in terms of a ministry. He came into his ministry at 30 and was assassinated at 33. But for those prior 30 years, between his childhood and his 30 years old, he was a businessman. He worked with his father as a specialized development carpenter. He didn't build houses. He made specialized items. And I know what I'm talking about. I don't have the time to go into this evening. He made specialized pieces, specialized tables and ornamental things, and actually owned a home outside of Nazareth. This was not a poor individual, such as what we continuously hear our colonial masters suggest that he was. He was not a poor person. He had a garment on that Roman soldiers gambled for. Which Roman soldier is going to gamble for a pauper's garment? Seriously? Come on, folk. So we have to understand that government has a responsibility to set things in order. When it comes to the Child Protection Bill, for example, government should not be engaging matters from a global perspective. Government has the authority and the sovereignty to say to the UN and anybody else, no, we are not having that in our country. Nobody can make a government do what they want, except the fact that we are under neo-colonial slavery, so that in a real sense, they have a gun to our head in terms of the money we borrow from them. And if you want the money, this is what you have to do. And we are above our head in debt, and we can't pay it because we don't have anything in Barbados producing the foreign exchange currency that is required to make payment for our debts. That's a reality. Don't let anybody fool you. Pray tell me what else besides tourism is earning Barbados significant sums of foreign exchange. Somebody tell me. Somebody tell me. So the government has a responsibility of establishing an environment where Barbadian people can have their stress levels reduced, because that leads to obesity. That is a fact. That is a psychological fact. That is not a conspiracy theory. When people are depressed, some people respond, some, not all, but the majority of them respond in eating, overeating, and drugging their thing with liquor or whatever it is. That's what happens when people are under stress. And we are living in a society that is under stress. The government needs to sit down and stop playing games with the people's lives and start to engage processes that will help to alleviate the stress and depression, a sense of abandonment or rejection that is the root cause of things like obesity, Alzheimer's, dementia, diabetes, and I can go on and on and on and on. That is government's responsibility. And I don't think one of the 29 members of parliament know what I'm talking about. I don't think one of them has an idea about the development of a society. They don't sit with the people to hear from the people. They don't sit with the spiritual leaders of the country to hear from the spiritual leaders of the country. Some of us are involved, as I am. Not all of us are, but the church needs to get more involved with matters of righteousness and justice, just like Jesus said. Jesus said, you pay a lot of attention to tithes and offerings and all of that, and you leave undone the things such as righteousness and justice. But those you ought to have done while you're doing all your tithing and all the rest of it. He said you should have been doing that. So you got to be able to chew gum, walk and chew gum, I think is what they say. All right. And very quickly, because my time is rolling by so fast. When I say government, you're talking about things like the cybersecurity bill and the child protection bill, where we are embracing global agendas that do not fit with our societal development. I hear from the Manual of Humanity, spare the rod and spoil the child. It says ignorance is in the heart of a child, but the rod will drive it from him. If we don't like it, that's unfortunate. But I'll tell you what, Barbados and UNICEF and all of them have been able to tie together legitimate corporal punishment with child abuse. And the two are poles apart, but they've been able to bring them together. I got licks growing up. I got licks. My mother was an educator, and I used to go to school in her primary school, and I got licks. It hasn't warped my psychology and my psyche, because my mother never beat me out of anger. My mother never applied the rod of correction to me out of anger. And the Bible says, whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth and chastiseth every one of his children. If you're not chastised, you are a bastard, which means you are actually not one of his children. And that was what I am happy was demonstrated to me. My mother showed me her love for me by cutting my backside when I needed it. And today it has made me a much better man in my society. And I thank God for her. The school in Boscobel, the Edna Nichols Center, is named after her. And the many children that she produced out of that school and out of her life that have gone on to be tremendous leaders and contributors to our society in Barbados. And so I want to say how pleased I was to watch the show last night. It was absolutely brilliant to hear those children, and I thank God for them. I don't have the time to get into the aspects of the child support and all those kind of things, but this I will say: the father is as pivotal as he is, because in God's agenda, he is the authority figure of the household. The scripture is clear. He made man first. He didn't make woman. He made man first, ladies. And he gave man a responsibility to the point where he demands a man to love his wife as he loved the church and died for it. My friends, my fellow males on this, No, Esther, not taking my blood pressure. My blood pressure is perfect. Let me tell you, it's just the passion inside of me. All right. But let me tell you, it is harder for a man to love a woman than for a woman to submit to a man, because a man's love must be prepared to give his life. That's what Jesus said through the Apostle Paul. A man must love his wife as Christ loved the church and gave himself for it. And if a woman can find a man like that, it is easy as a pig in mud to submit to that type of a man. So, men, it's a tall order we have to follow when it comes to who we set as our example to father our children and to lead our family. So that's enough preaching for tonight. I'm going to bring in Victor. I see Victor in the back room. And I think Victor's supposed to be joining me just about this time. And I want to bring him, in so that I can let him maximize his time with us tonight, because I want to hear what he has to say. Well, good evening to you, Victor. So nice to have you with us. I watched your show last night. I listened to the children's input, the questions that were placed to you, the responses you made. It was an absolutely heartfelt show. Honestly.
Thank you very much.
So good evening and welcome to the Marcia Week Show again.
Yeah, good evening, Reverend Ferdinand. You're really bouncing, man. That's
well,
wonderful.
it is World Cup. It is World Cup, right? It's World Cup. So being the
Literally
opening bowler,
yes,
being the opening bowler, I'm supposed to be fiery, right? You know, you have to make sure you get them Yorkers in and them bouncers and them away swingers and all that. Huh? Yeah, so yes, lad, good to have you. Good to have you.
In the whole process, we want to maintain our sanity as a people, and I'm happy that you mentioned that. You know, that the government takes responsibility for that. That's why I really want to focus on what's happening on the East Coast.
Yes,
I want to speak towards what's happening in Joe's River, because that is our wellness sanctuary. So for us to maintain our sanity, we must be able to maintain that in the hands of Barbados, in the hands of visitors. You know, that we must be conscious of the actual value of that to the people of Barbados and maintain it. But I also want to talk about some questionable activity that I'm seeing now in another area of the East Coast, Martins Bay. And I want to speak to that, because you know what is happening now with the whole Scotland district, where they're seeking to sell so many different properties within the Scotland district. Wherever you go in this area, you can see up for sale, property for sale, property for sale, property for sale. So in the area of Martins Bay, I saw some activity there going on that I really want to bring to the interest of all Barbadians. So I'm going to ask Dave to roll the video, because I'm going to speak to what's happening now. So this first video here, so just hold it still. If you can see the rock there on the right-hand side, there is a claim by the owner of this property that they own that rock in the sea. I mean, literally in the sea. And four rocks down, he also owns that rock. So the rock there, right on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see the sign there on the left saying keep out. So you don't, when you travel along the coast here, you don't keep to the left, you keep to the right. And that's your path going down. A little further down, you can see a sign there marked beach. So if you can just roll the video, Dave, and just pause it. If you're rolling the video. All right, so that's the rock that I'm speaking about. There's claims, all right, that particular sign there tells you if you want to go to the beach, you have to go in that direction. That is where you enter for the beach. And that particular rock there in the sea is claimed to be owned by the owners of this property. Continue to roll the video. Yes. Right, so this is all the activity that's going on there. You can still the video. You can stop it at this point, Dave. So that rock there, just behind the mul tree, right, the little small mul tree, that particular rock, along with the one on the above side, they're saying that on the deeds for their land, those two rocks are on their deeds. Therefore, they own the rocks. Now, I know for sure they don't own the water around the rocks. So it means then that they're on two islands. That rock bear one island and the other rock bear another island. So they own two islands. So they don't really, I really got confused relative to that. And I spoke to a gentleman by the name of Noel Campbell, because I did 3 visits there. That first visit, there was some degree of hostility, but I paid 2 visits after that, and I will get to that in a minute. So continue to roll the video, Dave. So this is all the activity that's going on here with an interest of filling what they call a community park. But on the so stop it there now. Stop it there, Dave. So the section to the left goes to what we call jacuzzi on the left top. The one here to the right, where you can see going down to the beach. When I came there in the first instance, that area carried a sign saying trespass at your own risk. I thought that was wonderful, because I also saw one on the top of Hackett's Cliff that says, trespass at your own risk. Down in George River, trespass at your own risk. Those things are fine. I don't have a difficulty with that. But when I went back the second time, I saw 2 signs. One there now where you can see that piece of board on the ground, barring off entrance to the section on the left. I think you should see it in your video later. And there was also a sign on the one to the right saying private property, no trespassing. So I had difficulty with that. Because if this is where I am, I need to be able to go to the sea. So you're saying that I must go up there where you saw that sign. If I wanted to go to the sea, I have to go up there where you saw that sign. I cannot go in that area of the sea. So what's being conveyed to me, that since we own the rocks in the sea, therefore the area of the sea from the rocks in, we also own. So if you want to go to the beach, you have to go up above. That was what was somehow being conveyed to me in the first instance when I went there. Continue to run the video. So this is the area on top there that I would deem as private. You can not know if you can run the video again and just bring it back to the area on the top.
Yeah, I think you might have to rewind it, Dave.
Right. So you can run it and
just to take it back to the area.
Right.
Yeah.
That area there. That area, I can respect that is private. If you want to make that private for individuals, you can see the sign there to the left that would have said before, trespass at your own risk. I could understand that. I could understand if you're going to go and set up a little area on top where there's a little shower and so forth to make that private, yes. But the one to the right, where there's the stairs going down to the sea, my question was, is the sea private to individuals who are occupying this property? Because you say you own the 2 rocks in the sea. I have a difficulty with that. So we had issues. But, some expletives and everything started out. So I said, let me go on about my business. Continue the video. They own the rocks in the sea.
But if you look at the video that you're showing, it would mean that the beach between the rocks, that is going from one rock up to the other rock, if they own the property between their house and the rocks, then it would mean that all the beach between those 2 rocks would be owned by them as well. So you are going down onto the beach, but in truth and in fact, according to them, you're going down still onto their property.
Onto their property. So I had big difficulty with that.
So what is the matter with, somebody is asking, what is the matter with the high water mark? Can you
because I also brought that to Noel, and I must say that Noel Noel Campbell is his name. He was very cordial, you know, in the second instance, not in the first instance, because, you know, I paid 3 visits there, but I'll get to that. Let's continue to run the video. So, all right, so that is all the general area there. All right, so we can stop that video, Dave. Now, in my 3rd visit, I encountered a gentleman by the name of Curtis Lashley. And Curtis Lashley is the owner of the property. You can pull the 2nd video up, Dave. You can pull the 2nd video up. So Curtis Lashley is, in actual fact, the owner of the property. And he is also very, very cordial. All right. So this is the 2nd property that they own. And now Curtis is developing. So what they're doing here is they're taking down this whole bank to install boulders in order to protect the shore from further erosion. So to the right of this is the video that we would have been seeing before. So this is the 2nd property that Curtis bought. So he is now going about quite a lot of renovations in order to make it more pleasing for all and sundry. So I don't have a difficulty there. So Curtis, again, was very cordial. And when I met Noel in the 2nd instance, he was very cordial. When I met Noel in the 3rd instance, the signs were removed. And now Curtis and Noel is saying that the public has access now to the path of the steps going down to the beach. They don't have a difficulty with the folks using the beach, but they want to know that if individuals come and use the property, as the case may be, that they're treated, you know, properly. You know, you need to embrace it. We need to know how to coexist as a people. So I thought that Curtis and Noel was very receptive in terms of the conversation. But I still will scratch my head why the signs came up that
in the first place.
You know, so that is something that we need to look at. But Noel said, who I think is the foreman on the site. So Noel said he's willing to come on video and to let the general Barbadian public know what they are doing in terms of those properties in that particular area. So we ended up on a very positive note.
Very amicable arrangement.
Right. So I'm looking forward to this from Campbell. So this is the 2nd property. So what Curtis said, that he's also planning to buy a 3rd property going in this direction. So that hold the video right there, right? So that's a section on top there for the 2nd property. So those are the borders on the ground there now that he'll be using to help to retain the shore area from soil erosion. So Curtis then plans to be owning 3 properties in that area, and he's developing them with a view that the Barbadian public will be engaged in the whole process, and everything that is done up there, that it will be done in the interest of Bajans. So he doesn't have a difficulty with that. He was very receptive. Noel now is very receptive, and I'm looking forward for that video where Noel will explain to the public of Barbados what are the plans going on in that area. All right, so I want to go on to the 3rd video because there's also some activity going on further down the coast from there. So our 3rd
But
video,
you know, Victor, let me just jump in here for a minute. But you know,
yes,
one of the reasons that I believe government has a responsibility to establish a permanent understanding, whether it be drawn out legally or whatever, is because Curtis and Noel will not live forever. Precisely. And their families or grandchildren, great-grandchildren or whatever, may not be the kind of people who share the same types of outlooks that Noel and Curtis share. Because
Curtis also said to me that, you know, that he said on the land deeds prior to you know, in the whole purchasing of the properties, etc., the deeds show that the path that we are currently taking was not really the path, you know, shown on the deeds. That in actual fact, our path was down by the sea, over the banking, down there where you saw that piece of equipment operating. That is where the public would have been passing before. So then they are speaking about these, I believe, from the 17th century, but they cannot be applicable in 2024.
No,
and that is
no.
that is my concern. This is the third video. When if you're hiking, you're going in this direction, that fencing was never there. That particular fencing. Continue to run the video. So the Soil and Conservation did some work in this area, and they put in some gabions. All right, just let the video run. So there we see another sign again saying private property. All right, hold the video right there. That is the path that we would have been taking in order to travel along the coastal side of that area. We are no longer allowed to travel that path. That was a safe path. If you look down low to the left, you will see the gabions. All right, and coming down that grass, that is where we walked before, because it was safe to do that. That's the safe direction that all people took when you're traveling that area of the coast. Continue to let the video run. All right, hold the video right there. Stop there. Right at that point, I'm at the top of the gabions, and the drop there is about 10 to 12 feet. So if you go there and you make a mistake, you're going to drop 10 to 12 feet down on gabions, hard, solid rock, and of course, that practically you'll be either made disfigured or dead. So that is the path provided for individuals to now travel. That is the little bridge that they built for the people of Barbados to travel across. That is unsafe.
That's disrespectful.
So any person coming here right to this point, and you make a mistake right there, if you're not agile, you're gone over that banking, 10 to 12 feet drop. So I don't know. The soil conservation came, put in those gabions, but then we continue the video. So right down at the bottom of that set, all right, you were supposed to have joined two videos. So there's another video there that there's another video that we would have seen in terms of the movement. Now at the bottom of that set, at the bottom of the set, we would have been continuing on the left, going up the gabions, and as you go up the gabions, the actual drop became lower and lower and lower and lower till you could safely cross up in the hills of the gabions and then come around and come down on the pasture side. That is no longer applicable. What you must now do is to travel across that unsafe bridge. That's the path that we would travel before. Hold it right there. That is where we traveled before. So we would go up through there, go to the top of the gabions, cross, and then come down safely on the pasture. No, they have placed wires across. You can see a wire there from that tree onto the handrail. That is saying that you're no longer allowed to go up through there. You must go across that bridge. And that particular area that has been constructed for us to travel is unsafe. It is wrong. I would want to commend them for at least making an effort. They made an effort. If you want to just put up your fencing and say, this is my property, you must be able to put systems in place where people can safely travel across those gabions. It has not been done. It is unsafe, and it is not in the best interest of Barbadians and visitors. So let me go on to my third one. And this is dealing with this particular piece of information that was given in the Sunday Sun on the 9th of June. And I would want to read a section of it to you. It says, I've written to Mr. Victor Lewis in connection with an issue that we have had. I have not heard from him since I have written to him in April. As far as I'm aware, Mr. Lewis is still involved in the matter, but he's indicated that I had a challenge with something that has occurred. I wrote to him about that challenge. I am not at liberty to speak about the specifics about it because you don't get into your client's business in a public forum, but I am prepared for court. And at the top of this paper, he is saying generous George River proposal, generous George River proposal. And on that, it has a drawing. And I want to speak to that.
You know, before you speak to that, Victor,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry. I am placing responsibility squarely on the government's shoulders because no construction or land development can occur in Barbados without the consent of the minister responsible. And as far as I am aware, that would be the prime minister. No
Precisely.
land development can be done. And if something is being done that Barbadians can both show and be seen, not in the interest or taken away the accessibility of Bajans to what would have been traditionally as and I'm trying to get the right word here, a psychologically soothing experience, you know, because when people are stressed out, one of the most wonderful things to do is to go and take a walk by the sea.
Of
You know what I'm
course.
saying? That's why I
Just listen
started
to the
this
water and look
evening.
at the water.
Yes, that's why I started this evening by placing the responsibility of government squarely on government's shoulders for providing an environment for people to live a stress-free, depression-free existence, because all of these things contribute to stress. People can no
Precisely.
longer have the access to somewhere where they can. And I drove down the West Coast, Victor, and there are areas on the West Coast I used to be able to pull in on and just sit down like you would by the old Pebbles Beach restaurant, now out by the Hilton, where you could pull up and you can sit and relax and listen to the sea and just have your psyche soothed with the sound of the water.
But I
And
don't want
that,
to go. I don't want to go to the West Coast. If I've been down there 3 times through the year, been down there a lot. I
well,
don't want to go there. That's
I
pure
went down
busy.
there. I went down there once, and honestly, I almost cried. I'm not kidding. It took me all the way up to nearly past Ports Ferdinand to be able to see comfortably. You remember that area when we left Spikestown, the road used to go up north and used to go right alongside the sea. Now it goes a bit, you have to swing off now and get around Ammon Beach.
Right.
You remember? I don't know how many people remember that. I was down there as a child. I lived in Boscobel for many years with my mother teaching there.
Yeah, the
And
old
and
road is
that
still
was,
there.
yes, the old road coming up, but not the full length going all the way up that we
No.
used to have access to. And people
Right.
used to go down there for beach picnics on a bank holiday and all of that.
And just relax.
Yeah,
Now you want to be able to go, an individual should be able to freely go to George River Gully and relax. Families
yeah.
go relax. Groups go hike, relax. And this
Yes.
is the challenge now that we're having with George River Gully. Now, I would have received some correspondence, you know, from my legal representative, and let me say my former. I've taken time to reflect on these events, and this is communication that came from my former legal representative. I've taken time to reflect on these events, and I've come to the decision to withdraw from representing you in this matter with a heavy heart, knowing that I took on this case on a pro bono basis, obtaining the critical injunction which holds to this day as a vital cog in the case before the court. I will make a formal application to the court on May 8th, 2024, to seek leave to withdraw you as your legal counsel. You will note, and I don't want to mention that name, that I continue to represent his interests in this case, and I have agreed to do so. You are therefore advised to obtain fresh legal counsel and to take advice on the contents of this letter. I wish you the very best in all your future endeavors and thank you for the opportunity to lend my legal professional services to you in your hour of need. I never had an hour of need. The people that were in need is the people of Barbados, not Victor Lewis. The issue here in question is not about Victor Lewis. It is about the people of Barbados. When I look at that page, and I saw on this page And also the representative for St. Joseph can see on this page, on this drawing, that they have a path laid out there that is called the established path of entrance for us to the George River Gully. That is incorrect. That is wrong. How we started off in the first instance with the George River Gully with an intention by the government of Barbados to block us out. That was the first intention. They were saying that we will no longer have further access. But after that, many proposals came into play. And I want to show you something that is consistent with all the proposals. All of them, all of the proposals put the people of Barbados on the seaward side of the bridge. And in order for you to get back on the landward side of the bridge, you either have to cross borders on the left or on the right, or come through Jody Hole, where we know an individual drowned. Now, this decision that has to be made relative to George River, this is very much generational. I am 67 years, 67. Maybe the Lord might allow me 3 more. This has nothing to do with me. This has something to do with my children, your children, and our grandchildren, and all the other generations to come. What will they say in the next 2 or 3 generations? That Dr. Ferdinand and Victor Lewis sat down and agreed that we, in trying to access George River Gully, must travel from at the end of the gully over these boulders or come through Judy Hole and drown. That is the decision that is currently before all Barbadians. It is totally incorrect for them to suggest to us, again, that I'm going to Teacup and Saucer, the most dangerous beach in the area of the East Coast, music, that they're saying to individuals on this committee who represent NCC and soil and environmental and all the above. I'm saying that the competency of those departments are not reflected in these proposals. So I give way to them. Right? So for the suggestion that we will be traveling to Teacup and Saucer via music, that's an insult to Bajans. And for the decision to be made for Barbadians, if you want to go on a hike through the George River Gully, you must go down to the end of the gully. That is the proposal on that plan. And for you to return for your hike, you must go seaward, then come back landward. That is an insult to us. We should never be ever thinking for Bajans that individuals going on a hike, we must make it safe for our people. And the established path is under the bridge that has been established many, 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 many years ago. And that will not change. So I want to say to all those representing, and I want to say to the head of the Planning and Development Department, our Prime Minister, that in having an interest in the people of Barbados, we need to bring this to an end. And in bringing it to an end, the actual state of the George River area now, all of those walls that have been built up, clear them down. And let us continue to have our wellness sanctuary as we would have had it for all the years that we exist.
Thank you, Victor. You know, I can't but agree with you. Look, if government can compulsorily acquire Mrs. Ram's land to produce a hotel on Bay Street, when submissions are made for property being purchased on the seaside in Barbados, government can either mandate, because government can go into parliament and implement laws and make laws that anybody acquiring property in this country has to abide by.
Precisely.
So that you can say, okay, fine. If you want to buy the property, no problem. But accessibility must be maintained
and
for
it cannot
Barbadians.
Be all about money.
Correct. And then secondly, if it is a matter of legislative capabilities, because I understand the matter of deeds and covenants and all, we all understand that. But if the government can go and acquire Miss Ram's land and not pay her, they can acquire land that is in a deed as well pay the persons out for it instead of buying Mercedes-Benz for the MLs, for the statutory boards, and BMWs for the government ministers using taxpayers'
I
money.
tossed the question out there, Dr. Fernand, you know. I want to know who owns the land where the bridge is and around the side of the bridge. I am still out here listening for an answer to that question. Who owns that land? Because that should never be owned by any investor.
But wouldn't the land registry department have that documentation or have that information?
Well, I would like to think so, but you know this environment we're dealing with.
Yes, I do. Yes, and no, I understand you very well. Don't doubt for a minute. You see, and listen, folks. This is and I want to maintain what Victor is saying. This is not about Victor. This is not about Ferdinand. This is not about Marcia. This is about Barbadians. This is about our future. Yes, this is about our future generations who, again, to me, Victor, this falls into an aspect where government has a responsibility to provide accessibility to environments that could soothe the psyche of Bajans, helping them, when people are going through challenges and so forth, help them in terms of these so-called, and don't let me say so-called, non-communicable diseases, obesity. And, I look at root causes for these things. And if I can go, one of the lovely things I enjoy is sitting on an area where I can enjoy a view. And by the seaside where I can feel the breeze going across my face and hear the sea, and can sit there and you can think and you can process information, challenges you're having with your wife, challenges you're having with your children, challenges you're having financially. You can sit there and you can think, you can garnish your thoughts a lot better than in the madness of the household or the madness of the office. You are in a wonderfully soothing environment. And so this is why I place the responsibility at government's feet, because it's government's responsibility to protect.
That's why I'm saying, Dr. Ferdinand, that there's nothing generous about this. Yes. This is an insult.
I mean, when I look at the bridge you were talking about just now, there are two pieces of plank put down going over. I mean, they haven't even laid out a proper, 1x6 with some 2x4, railings and, with a nice stepping down or just two planks.
And some retaining barriers, an individual falling off,
It's absolutely ridiculous.
If you're not agile, you will get hurt.
Yes, yeah, and I can see that, and I must tell you, Victor, I commend you for sticking to it, because we need, I laugh at a preacher one time and he said, be like a postage stamp, stick to one thing until you arrive, and I appreciate you sticking to this and fighting the process. You should run for office, to be honest, because the current representative obviously is not interested in helping the people in St. Joseph. Maybe they need to look for a new representative that will represent the people rather than the government. Because what a lot of these parliamentary representatives do not realize is that they work for the people, not for the government. It is the people who put you there. It is the people who voted you into office, and it is the people to whom you are accountable and answerable to. And if you are not looking after the interests of the people, then you should step down or be removed. That is how I view it. I don't want to complicate it. It seems to me quite simple.
Well, wrong is wrong, and wherever I see wrong, I'm going to call
absolutely.
it out,
Absolutely, regardless of which party it is. This is what it ought to be. This is what righteousness is. This is what justice is. If you want to buy the property, no problem. If you want to, like Curtis and Noel, develop aspects that would enhance what Barbadians would enjoy normally and make sure mechanisms are placed so they can safely navigate the areas and so forth, well, then certainly I would say no problem. No problem. But make sure the legislative aspect is in writing, that it can be maintained. Well, good evening, Marcia. And it's so nice to see you. I absolutely enjoyed the show last night. It was quite a surprise to me, to be honest, I was looking for something a bit different, but I wasn't looking for anything that different in terms of you having children on and for such an extended period of time, and to listen to the intelligence of those children was a wonderful exercise as both a father and a grandfather. Good evening and
Good
welcome to
evening,
your show.
evening to you, Dr. Ferdinand. And I've been doing so many different things, listening to the show and just getting some other things done. And it's always a joy, just to listen and say, "Oh wow, this is I'm listening tonight," and it's just been a very informative. I could see why people keep coming back. I want to thank everybody for joining. There, people are watching from all over. Thank you so
Oh,
much. Thank you,
yes.
Dr. Ferdinand, just keeping that light on and keeping
Amen.
everything going. And it's just been tremendous thus far. And you talk about the children and the show last night. And while we wait on Mr. Franklin, who, by the way, I'm being told is in a meeting at this time. So I think he's going to come on a little later. As you know, he's
Mhm,
dealing with different things with workers
mhm,
and so on. You spoke about the children, Dr. Ferdinand, and a lot of people have been messaging me and talking about the children. And what we have to remember is that these are our Barbadian children. These are ours. These are not children that came in from someplace. These
mhm,
are
mhm,
these are our children, and they represent the true Bajan spirit. They represent us as a people. They're us. They grew up here. They were born here, grew up here, and that's who we really are. That's our
mhm.
spirit there. And tonight, while we wait on Caswell Franklin, I want to talk to us about the true Bajan spirit. Just a couple minutes. And that
Mhm, mhm,
true Bajan spirit, I don't think we see that all the time now. Those little children spoke last night when, they were talking about how sometimes, when a father isn't around, then they don't feel, they don't feel the way that they're supposed to feel. They're not walking. They don't feel like they're themselves then, and being themselves and being who they're supposed to be. And, Reverend, I believe that a lot of us as Barbadians, we are going around, going about our daily lives, but we're not tapping into who we really are.
mhm.
In many households, you see children, these kids, they grow up, and you see little Caleb, the way he's so bold, right? And
Yes,
so strong. And
yes.
sometimes by the time he gets to 15 or he gets to 20 years old, he is no longer that way anymore. His spirit has been dumbed down. Life has taken over, and he's
Yes,
been through
yes.
a lot of disappointments, beaten down. Life has beaten him down. And I want to say to us Barbadians that a lot of us, our spirit, what we're seeing of ourselves, is not the true Barbadian spirit. It's a spirit that has been beaten down and have been trodden down and have been told many times, you can't, you won't, you're never good enough. This person can do this thing better than you can. And we don't, you're not smart enough. You didn't get enough marks to go to the school that you're supposed to be at. This school, you don't speak standard English. All kinds of things that causes us to want to go to the back of the line. And what it does, it crushes our spirit, and we don't get to see the true Bajan spirit. Because I tell you, if you look at little Caleb and Naomi and Narayan, you say, wow, Reverend, you said they're so they are so intelligent. They are so full of destiny. They're so full of promise. And you get Naomi, for God forbid, and she gets in an abusive relationship that we hope will never happen. And that man, or whatever the situation, they beat the daylights out of her. It reduces her as an individual. And I want to say that that is what has happened to us in slavery. When we came from the west coast of Africa, came to Barbados, that's what we are seeing of ourselves. It's not the true essence of who we are. What we are experiencing of ourselves, what we see of ourselves in this day and in this time, it's not the true essence of who we are as Barbadians. I believe we're a shadow of our true self. And why am I saying that? I looked up the meaning of the word passivity, and I want to read that to us tonight, because I'm going somewhere with this. We're going to talk about Carl Alf Padmore, all right? But I just want to read the word passivity, because since I've been to Barbados, I've been living here over 20 something years. All I keep hearing is that Bajans are passive. Bajans are passive. Bajans are passive. And, it causes me it has caused me to really do some research. And passivity is the acceptance of what happens without active response or resistance. Acceptance of what happens without active response or resistance. Dr. Ferdinand, that a woman, we'll use a woman, say, for example, if she's in an abusive relationship, she might have gotten up one time and tried to fight at the man, right? But then he throws her down and beats her up. Sorry, men, I know yesterday was Father's Day and we were making you all feel big. But I'm just using this as an example because the man is more powerful than the woman. Over a period of time, that woman is not going to want to resist anymore, That woman is not going to want to resist anymore. And that is kind of what has happened in Barbados. We get up and we fight about something and we don't see any response. Our leaders, they push us down. You've been told that you're a troublemaker, you're anarchist, or whatever names they call you. You're fighting and you're pushing against this wall. And then after a time, you just kind of give up and you just lay there. But is that really who you are? Is that really who you are? And for that, I want us, I don't know if Dave has the video there of Carl Alf Padmore. Dave, if you have that, I want you to I'm going somewhere with this, guys. I want you to, because I believe what happened with Carl Alf Padmore there and at that airport is a teachable moment. Let's just play that. I know we've all seen it, but let's just play that again.
My name is Carl Padmore. Carl Padmore, a Barbadian who has been put off a plane in Canada. I live in Marchfield, St. Philip, and you can tell them that I stood up for people on the plane. And they're putting me off the plane because they said there are diabetics on the plane. There are people on the plane with wheelchairs, and they're putting me off the plane. All they asked for is water and a meal. There were people at the airport saying it's 4 o'clock. 4 o'clock. And all they asked for is for people to be looked after and treated as human beings. That's all they asked for. And there are people up there who are going to cricket. And they say to the security, he is not making noise. He's just asking. Look, the lady's right there. She said all he was asking for is for meals. And he is telling me, get my personal belongings and go. You all can consult the Consul General for me. My mother's name is Marcia Padmore. I am not pleased with this treatment. Thank you. I love you all.
Ah. And anywhere you are in your home, anywhere you're in your home, you should be clapping. I want to ask you something. Does that sound like passivity?
Not at all.
Not at all. I had a chance to speak with Mr. Padmore today. Passivity is the acceptance of what happens without active response or resistance. Was that passive?
No.
Is Carl Padmore, Alf, as we know him, is he a Barbadian?
Yes, he is.
Was that passive?
Not one bit, Marcia. I know Alf myself.
One bit. I want to, all of us have been at some point, Dr. Ferdinand, in those airports, and things have happened. You're not in your home, you're not dealing with your home people. You're not in your space. And to get up, and first of all, First of all, you see this thing has happened there. There, he says over 5 hours. All right. How many of us would have gotten up and spoken on behalf of everybody? Think about it. How many of us would have gotten up? What would we think we would have risked to get up and to speak on behalf of everybody? You are in a place like Canada or the US. He's a black man. I would have been probably holding on to Dave and said, Dave, don't say anything because you don't know what they're going to do.
Well,
was that passive?
I would have been holding on to him and telling him, let's go for it, Carl. Let's go for it.
Exactly. And you are Barbadian, right?
That's right. That has happened to me on more than one occasion where I've had to stand up in foreign countries, not in Barbados. I mean, in Barbados, I've had to do it as well. But that's not my nature at all. I will not tolerate foolishness from anybody. That's not what my mother taught me. My mother taught me that I am not only Barbadian, I'm human, and I must be treated, and I must treat others in like manner.
Exactly. No, that is the true Barbadian spirit. Let me read what passivity is again. Acceptance of what happens.
Yes.
Without
active response
or
resistance.
That is not who we are.
That's right.
Not what I've experienced in Barbados. I am telling you, we have allowed ourselves to believe a lie. The lie is that we are passive. That's a lie, Dr. Ferdinand. That what you saw there is not that took a lot of courage for a black man in North America to get up and to do that.
That's right. That's right. That's right. In a hostile environment such as Canada, I mean, Canada is well known. And after the pandemic, it's got even worse.
Here, somebody says here, this is what I want us to get rid of that spirit, Dr. Ferdinand. I would love for this to be a teachable moment for Barbados. I want us to, I know we come on here to talk about what's happening in the politics and this is what is happening in Barbados right now, where the true Barbadian spirit is coming to light. And that's why we have those marches. And people are coming to the marches and they're connecting to it. And people, when we started up, people say to me, oh, we don't march in Barbados. We don't do marches in Barbados. We don't do protests in Barbados. We don't do those kinds of things.
But the Prime Minister led a major march coming into the 2018 general election. She stands and speaks on international circuits with the Barbadian spirit, but then when it comes to back here at home, there is an attempt to stifle that same spirit that gives her the privilege of standing in a UN and international environment and chastising international leaders for how they are conducting their business. But that's the spirit of Bajans.
The Barbadian spirit is not one of passivity. And
no, it is not.
For the rest of my life living in this country, I will continue to say that. I will continue to say that until Barbadians begin to believe it and realize that all that has happened through slavery, through colonialism, neocolonialism, is that we have been beaten into subjection.
That's right. We've been stifled.
Every time the massa hit us, we get up and we try and they beat us down further. And we get up and they try and they beat us down further. And we're trying to speak up. We're speaking up. That's what Adrian Green was saying in his article. Adrian Green wrote an article that is so brilliant.
Brilliant.
Can you imagine, just as when Barbadians are starting to recognize who they are and to speak up, here they come with this cybercrime bill. Here they come with it. Every time we rise up, they come with a harder hand to knock us down. And that is all that has happened to our spirit. Massa take up the whip again and we run and cover underneath. And that's why they say the marches are not going to last and they don't mean anything and they're jeering. Bajans are jeering because they have been so accustomed to the abuse. You were saying something, Dr. Ferdinand.
But Marcia, not only that, it's the abuse by our own at the influence of Massa. That's what we are dealing with right now in this cybercrime bill and in the child protection bill. That is the neo-colonial perspective of which you speak, which is slavery by virtue of finances, is trying to use our own Black leaders just like they did in the old slavery days. They did exactly the same thing, Marcia. The white man brought a strong Black slave into the massa house and then used that massa slave to implement, you know, the punishments and everything on the rest of them slaves out there in the yard. And that's exactly what we are faced with. We are bringing global international slavery into our country at the hands of our own Black leaders. And that is something that must stop. And the only way for it to stop is for that true Barbadian spirit to rise up within people. And it happened before, Marcia, and I believe it will happen again.
Yes, it will happen again. And I really
want again.
to, I'm not seeing Caswell yet. I just want to take a couple more minutes as we wait on him. Just to say, let us burn that
we
lie.
Will not be silenced. We will
burn
not be
that
silenced.
lie. The lie of passivity, it is a lie. Our colonial masters told us that. The slave masters told us that. The colonial ones told us that. The neo-colonial ones that are right now running this country, they're banking on that. They're banking on us not deciding that we are going to take hold of our own fate, craftsmen of our fate.
That's right. Firm craftsmen.
Firm craftsmen of our faith. They are banking on that. And every time we get up, all they got to do is raise a fist and what? We're running back underneath the table. We're running under the cellar. We're running. But we are strong people. We are strong people. Strong people stand up for themselves. But stronger people stand up for others. Carl Alf Padmore is a strong Bajan man. Carl Alf Padmore. You hear what I tell you? Standing, and you heard how the people were clapping.
Yes.
Where you saw the people, some of the people he was standing up for did not even look like him.
And you know what?
They look like Ralph, like Alf.
What would have been nice is for all of them to get up and walk off the aircraft.
There you go.
If he could have led them off the aircraft and let the aircraft understand who is the more powerful people. You people don't understand that it's the customer that is really the most powerful individual. If all of those people, Marcia, had got up and walked off that flight couldn't have budged an inch.
Exactly. And that is what we're saying. When you see us march, it is the Bajan spirit that is deciding that we will not accept what is happening around us. We are not going to be inactive. Our response is not going to be inactivity. We are going to resist. That is what we are saying. That is what our spirit is saying. Yeah. And I want us people, I want us to really, really, really understand that. There is a saying, I'm going to send this to Dave for him to put on the screen while we wait on, while just a couple more minutes. If not, we go straight to Miss McLean. But let me just try and send this off to Dave, where Martin Luther King says, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. This was a letter from Birmingham, Alabama jail. I'm going to read that for Barbadians everywhere. Those of you who say why they go marching every day, why they keep going out there marching. We are back out there marching on Saturday because injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And this, I said before, is a letter Martin Luther King wrote it April 16, 1963 from Birmingham, Alabama jail. I am praying and hoping that this is a teaching moment for Barbadians. Teaching moment for us to sit down and imagine the kind of courage that it took Carl Alf Padmore to get up and speak out. And guess what? He was not rewarded for it. Bear that in mind as Mr. McLean gets ready to come in. He was not rewarded for it. He was put off the flight for it. A lot of us thinking that when we stand up, we're going to get rewards. We stand up because we believe in what it is that we're standing up for. We believe that the cybercrime bill, that it is not that it's not right. It is against our constitution, constitutional rights and our human rights, and we stand up.
And I feel, Marcia, that there should be more than the intervention of the Barbadian consulate. I think legal action should be taken against the airline for doing what it did. I think he has every right to pursue it, because that's the other thing we deal with in Barbados, and that is that we're not prepared to take things into the area of court to have justice, engage where we are concerned. You think if that was an American that would have got away like that? That's a joke. That would be in a law court, Marcia, and the award would be over $25 or $30 million, which, of course, incidentally, is the same amount of money they spent to build the cricket stadium in the States. Anyway, let me pass.
Yeah, but here it is, this black man, this black Barbadian man from St. Philip, right? Somebody that we know. He's a comedian, an artist. He's also the spokesperson for the sanitation workers.
For the sanitation department, yes.
He's been a teacher at Alexandra School for years. And this is what this man is doing. When I heard him and he called his name and called where he was from and his mother's name, I tell you, I had chills running through my body. And I said, yes, the true Bajan spirit. And that's what's in us. So let no leader, let nobody trying to tell us we're a 9-day wonder and we're going to walk and we out there just exercising and whatever. Don't you ever let them tell you that, because you are not passive. Yeah, so that's what I had to share tonight.
Well, that's a lot. That's a lot, Marcia. I'm telling you, I thank you for that. Because we need that. We need that in today's world that we live in, 2024, to stand up on the behalf of the people of our country. We need that Barbadian spirit. I see the indeminable. Is that the word? I'm trying to get the right word, but every time I see you come on this show, I am absolutely, I say, I'm about to sit and learn. I want to sit and learn. Welcome, Maxine. It's so good to see you, really.
Thank you very much.
Wonderful to see
welcome, and happy to be on the program. Marcia, that saying that you put up there, just remember that is your motto. It also is a descriptor of yourself. Strong people, but stronger people defend others. Yes. And I think that is very true. And that to me encapsulates what you've been trying to do on this show and what the people who you've been able to invite have been doing.
McLean, can I cut you right there and say it's what you have been doing to Miss McLean. You are the strong person. You are the strong person. You called me at my house. You see what I'm saying? What I want us to understand, don't see it as this loudmouth Jamaican. It is you. You are the instigator. It's people like you and my husband who are born here. You see what I mean? And people like
supposedly passive people. Supposedly passive people.
Supposedly passive people. And that's what I'm really trying to break us out of that and for us to really change how we see ourselves. But back to you, Matt.
Well, yeah, and I really want to say thank you, but I also quickly, before I get into what I want to talk about, say how I enjoyed. Well, you saw me sending you notes as the program went on, how I enjoyed last night, because really and truly,
yes.
that was last night. I was talking to Marcia in terms of notes I sent you.
Yes,
I
beautiful.
mean, it was a joy to listen to those 3 children.
Oh, yes.
Because as you said, I mean, children are generally unfiltered, honest,
innocent,
and express, and in their innocence express what's truly
clear,
and really and truly, it is what happens between then and later on. And you talked about it, so I'm not going to repeat that, which sometimes causes people to appear to lose that honesty and openness, etc. And this is what this show is about: confronting the issues that plague Barbadians and how we deal with them. And I'm gonna talk a little bit tonight, because I perhaps Caswell will join us later, so that there's a kind
Maxine, Maxine, can I just jump in to tell Marcia, the 2 girls that were on last night are classmates to my grandson.
Okay, nice.
And he was listening to, because I was listening to the show on my way home this afternoon, and he said, I know them. And it was so encouraging, really, because it's how they inspire each other. You know what I'm saying? And I could see something happen in him when he said, I know them. That what show is that?
No, you get it watching, Marcia.
There you get it.
It's good to get the young people involved, and maybe once a month or every few weeks you can have something where we hear the voices of children. They talk about all kinds of things, and it really touched my heart. But what I want to talk about, you would have heard last week in Parliament a debate on and some reference to a blue-green bank bill. It's almost, I have to say it slowly, blue-green bank bill 2024. And there was a debate. I mean, a couple of people spoke on it. I followed the initial part of it, and this is what the bill is about. And it says here, the bill is the establishment of the governance and operations of a green bank. Okay, great, thanks. Is better on the screen now. Great. And it's really about mobilizing resources to address issues of climate change. And I took the time to listen this afternoon after I agreed this is what I really was going to focus on today, to go back and listen, because when I listened last week, I listened to Minister Strawn, who introduced the bill. I listened to the leader of the opposition, Mr. Thorne, respond. I listened to Minister Cattle. And to be quite honest, I got up when Minister Kerry Simmons was about to speak. And I say that because I'm going to start my comments by referring to him. I sat down today after listening to the Prime Minister, and for some reason listened to him. And it is unfortunate, and as I said, I'll preface this, that rather than speak to serious issues, Mr. Simmons, under the protection of Parliament, said a whole set of rubbish, lying about me. And I say this because it's important. In his comments, and I wrote them down, he made the suggestion that I was being paid as a scriptwriter for the leader of the opposition. And I think it is, rather than speak, and this is what he had to say. I thought it was a very disingenuous reference to me, and indeed disgusting. And this is what he said: no, I would not have paid the former senator, the leader of government business for the Democratic Labour Party, to be my speechwriter or research assistant. I believe that if that is a payment, a contract of payment, in which payment is given for that which we were subjected to today, the only advice that I would give to the leader of the opposition is to call back for his money. And I want to set the record straight, because this Barbados Labour Party has a history, and I've been told so directly by well, he's a current minister now, that when we tell a lie upon you, it is hard to pull it back. So I just want to set the record straight, because I sat here and I said on the night when we heard that Mr. Thorne had crossed the floor, that as a retiree, I was prepared to assist him and whoever he named as senators. You probably will recall my saying that. and I do not detract from that. Nobody pays me. I'm a retiree, and the only payment I get are the returns on my 50 years of employment and investment in my time of retirement and the pension I get. So, you know, for him to do that is a sick and abominable, but that's his standard behavior. But I'm not going to waste any more time. I thought it was absolutely necessary, because anybody listening to that and repeating it is really offensive. But he has always been offensive. I sat in the Senate with him, and he has always been an offensive human being. But I say to Mr. Simmons, if you have nothing better to do, go find some way and do some work on behalf of the people. You're weak because you're saying that in a place where nobody can challenge you with a cybercrime bill or with defamation or anything. But I just had to say that, Marcia, because I find it offensive. Anyhow, to the bill. Now, this bill is proposed as a means of addressing climate change, as it says, the facilitation of financing of the sustainable green and blue sectors of the economy. The green, of course, we're talking about the physical land space. What we call terrestrial blue sectors is really related to the oceans. And it is recognized that if we are to combat climate change, there is need for a whole set of creative opportunities for doing how we engage in investment, how we live, and all of these things, whether it is in tourism, whether it's in agriculture, whether it is in construction or housing, etc. And so in essence, what was done was a piece of legislation. Now, if you go through the legislation, you will see provisions for its administration, etc. In very short, because I recognize the time constraints. The CARICOM, in fact, and Dave, if you can move from this piece of legislation to the document which relates to CARICOM, you would see that in February of this year, right, this document here, and you scroll down a little bit, you will see that this whole exercise was one in which in February this year, the governments of CARICOM agreed that they had to pursue finding what I would call dedicated funds to ensure that this bank, as it says here, heads of government are of the view that funds should be streamlined to ensure that there are no conflicting mandates. In this regard, heads of government supported the establishment of the Blue-Green Investment Bank, which is being established by Barbados. And it goes on to spell out the mandate, which is also spelled out in the bill that we mentioned. And that is to achieve adaptation and safeguarding resilience to our economy. Basically, what adaptation is, they're saying that, look, climate change has caused certain kinds of impacts, and therefore we have to find ways to take action to prevent or minimize the damage that is happening, whether it is to our oceans, whether it is to our water supplies, whatever the case may be. We know that rain patterns are unpredictable. How do we ensure, therefore, that we capture water to make sure that our farmers have water, etc.? And so this is part of what it is doing. It is a recognition that the traditional financial institutions, the regular commercial banks, are perhaps not going to necessarily take the kind of risk in lending for certain projects. And it is believed that what we need to do, and this is not new to this administration, this is something that we've been looking at as countries in the Caribbean, because we recognize that we are affected very severely by climate change. If you look at the almost destruction of Dominica, we go back to 2004, I think it was, when we had 2004, I think it was when we had the issue in Grenada, again with a hurricane. I think it was Hurricane Ivan, if I have the year wrong, pardon me. And so we see the kind of damage. In fact, right now we are going through what is the hottest temperatures that we have seen. Last year were some of the hottest, and this year is predicted to be hotter. So the reality is that the question is, how do we address this? And one of the things, Dave, if you can show the other article, there's something with a slogan, 1.5 to stay alive. Now, in her presentation, the Prime Minister made reference to this, and I was happy to see that she was in Parliament and speaking, because that's a relative rarity nowadays. And this slogan goes back to about, well, 2012 is, you know, that's 12 years ago. And in the region, when they were having these discussions in preparation for, you know, in the negotiations that have been taking place for several years, we hear of COP20 this and COP whatever, this conference of the parties is where the countries of the world come together to address the problems of climate change. And what they recognize that if the temperatures continue to rise beyond a certain percentage each year, a certain level of degrees, it is going to be extremely detrimental for the globe. So the 1.5 degrees to stay alive, the Prime Minister referred to it as to survive, which is part of it, but the slogan is 1.5 to stay alive, is a recognition that if the countries of the world don't limit the increase in temperatures on an annual basis to less than that, we're going to have problems. I don't know if you've recognized that recently. I was reading an article. If you go to Europe this year, you know what you have to walk with? Mosquito repellent, because the temperatures are so warm that you are getting issues of the kind of problems that we get in tropical climates. So at the end of the day, this is what was proposed. Now, as I said, I didn't listen to all of the persons, but I want, because I know time is going, I want to say something about the contribution of the leader of the opposition to this. And I took notes because, as I said, I've tried to explain what is a blue-green bank. It is spelled out in the legislation. I've also tried to explain how it differs from other financial institutions. It is generally not what you would call a deposit-taking bank. So in other words, I can't go and deposit money over the counter like we do. It is really a mechanism to mobilize funds. And in mobilizing funds, I'll give you, before I get to what the leader of the opposition say, I'll share with you what the Jamaican government has tried to do. In fact, about now, if it has not been launched, they will soon be launching, in, as I said, mid 2024, blue-green bonds. So in the same way that we buy government paper, you know, Barbadians bought bonds and treasury notes and so on, the Jamaican government is issuing that. Now, it is a very good way to raise funds for this. But think about what happened in Barbados. And I would just put the question on the table. Are we likely to see the same response to a bond issue of that type in Barbados after what we saw happen with the financing, I mean, with the government, government investments by Barbadians in treasury bills and treasury notes and bonds, etc., when the now Minister of Finance took her restructuring measures. Okay, so in looking at this, as I said, what we recognize is that in order to make funds available, there are going to be some measures that have to be taken. And as I said, as there are funds that are probably borrowed. And I think the initial capitalization for Barbados is 10 million US borrowed from some of the funds from the IMF. There's also provision in the legislation for the receiving of grants and the mobilization of funds. Now, when we talk about mobilization of funds domestically, I am reminded of the comments of the Prime Minister of Barbados sometime in the past when she spoke about the level of liquidity in the banking system in Barbados. So I am sure that, I mean, and this is a normal way to do it, to try to attract people. But as I said, because of what happened with government paper before, people may be reluctant to invest. Now, having said that, and also looking at the ways that funds will be allocated to, invest in renewable energy, in smart agriculture, etc. And I think it is on the basis of that Mr. Thorne, in his contribution, would have spoken to a number of caveats. So in other words, and when I listened to him, I label what he had to say as, okay, I am willing to support something like this, but there are several caveats, several concerns that I want to express. So in doing that, and I go back to the contribution of Mr. Simmons, he tried to label the contribution of the leader of the opposition as a climate skeptic. And again, that is disingenuous. The leader of the opposition did not say anything about that. He said basically that he recognized that, you know, he heard the government speak of issues of resilience and sustainability, but he cautioned the government that they should not, and I wrote it down. He said you should not be intolerant of the criticisms, because he's saying, listen, you have identified what this bank is supposed to be, how it is supposed to happen, but based on your track record, and this is my interpretation of what I heard, he did not spend his time repeating what the bank is supposed to do. That was presented by the people who led off the bill, but he's saying, okay, I heard you, but based on what the public has seen transpire in this country today, I need to caution you. He didn't say he had any difficulty with addressing or pursuing strategies to address climate change, but he said money must not be turned, and I wrote it down, money must not be turned into a slush fund. It should be for developmental initiatives. Now, if we look at what, and he referred to the project with homeowners with photovoltaics on their roofs becoming investors. Remember the whole project? The whole project, if followed properly, would be the kind of project that falls squarely under the whole question of adaptation and so on in relation to climate change. You're looking to reduce your use of fossil fuels and you're using renewable energy. But what happened? A project, $60 million it was, that was allocated, and we can't get proper evidence that it has been adequately and appropriately used. So those were the things he was looking at. He mentioned the oceans, because he's saying that in essence, we have to recognize that the contradictions that exist or might exist. And he made reference to the damage to our reefs when we had the whole question of the COVID period and what cruise ships were allowed to do and so on. So in essence, and then he spoke about the St. Lawrence Swamp. And if we are talking about green and blue economy, one of the things that we have to do is to obviously minimize disruption to natural life and so on. So in essence, what I heard in terms of that was a discussion on, in general terms, of what this fund is supposed to be. And then at the level of the leader of the opposition, he expressed a number of concerns or shared some cautionary perspectives as to what we have to avoid. Now, I will ask the question, having listened to all of them, exactly what structure will this take? Who are likely to be the main beneficiaries? Because as it says here, the functions of the bank to receive grants, loans, and other forms of financing, to make grants, loans, advances, or low overdraft. So when you look at the range of financial services to be provided, and we know that a grant is not something that is repaid. It is monies given to permit certain activities. And so when you say it should not be a slush fund, he's responding to the fact that monies can be provided, in the form of grants in particular and loans. We have had a development bank before. And anybody who knows the history of the Barbados Development Bank and its demise will understand that you have to express those cautions when you are examining this, whether you are a member of the public or you are the leader of the opposition and the sole opposition voice in Parliament at this point in time. To invest directly or indirectly in clean energy technologies. Reference was made to the situation facing persons who have invested in, or who are seeking to invest in photovoltaics and solar energy solutions. And so I think at the end of the day, Marcia, because I am conscious, let me see what time it is, that what we have is a situation where the legislation is intended to provide the legal framework within which this blue-green bank is to exist. However, as important as it is, given its objectives, its purpose, one has to be concerned that there is significant that there's proper transparency, let me put it that way, that it is clear that there are provisions for a cross-section of Barbadians well, it's Barbadian and regional, but I'm speaking about Barbados now domestically. We have to be concerned that there are provisions for micro enterprise, smaller operators, and that we don't see a situation where, for example, right now, a number of people are trying to get into providing, supplying solar energy, but have had to fall, to pause or fall behind a small group of major investors.
Yeah.
So I think that, to me, hopefully that has given us a chance to have a look at what this is, what is done, and to speak to what I call to be some of the disingenuous statements that were made in Parliament, rather than speak to some of the issues that would have been raised by the leader of the opposition to besmirch people's character, including mine. But I'm ready to take on Kerry Simmons anytime.
That's the Bajan spirit coming out. She ain't passive, no passivity. You see, you're getting Nanny of the Maroons tonight, is what you get. But Miss McLean, thank you so very much, because I didn't really even understand what this was all about. But what I want to know is, what is the source? What I don't understand, they're going to be doing grants and financing projects and so on. What is the source of the funds, or where is this money coming from?
But as I say, they're investments. So if you have, for example, and I have to read a bit more to see, as I said, because we need to hear more about the operationalizing of this. But you have in the case of Barbados, borrowed funds from the IMF, the 10 million US that I mentioned is an initial injection. You have the Green Climate Fund, where funds are contributed by some of the larger countries and so on, which would have been pledged at several of the climate change conferences. You had the 2015, I think it was, Paris Agreement, where people pledge billions of dollars, etc. So in theory, monies can come from some of those grants. Now, because they are lending, they're lending money, and the assumption is you get a loan, you pay interest, and that goes back into the pool of funds. So, for example, in the example that I use, in the case of Jamaica, where Jamaica is looking, or has, I have to go back and update my knowledge as to whether it's happened, because they said mid-June, which is this mid-June 2024, they were looking to launch a set of bonds that would give you a pool of funds. For example, in Barbados right now, we traditionally would have bought government paper. And I would say this, that had we not seen what took place in 2018, a lot of people would probably be very happy to invest in government paper for this kind of purpose. But because people got burnt to some extent, and not only individuals, but institutions like credit unions and so on, they may hesitate to do so in the levels, in the case of Barbados, if such a bond were issued. But that's where the monies would come from. You know,
so
a mix of services, yeah.
IMF loans, some investors, some various countries.
Domestic investment instruments such as green bonds.
Okay.
You know, and then of course once you start operating and people borrow money and pay back the interest would also add to the funds available for on lending, etc.
So who are the, you know, so the government then would determine who can borrow from this bank?
Yeah, well, yeah, because the bank, well, when I say the government, the assumption is that, and perhaps what Dave can do is scroll down to the administration, like the what was the Barbados Development Bank. In the past, you would have a board of directors, and that board of directors would determine who you go down. We want to go to administration, come down, probably be below that. No, you have to come down. You're going in the opposite direction. We want to go in the other way. You want to go in the other way. So government would set up an institution. They appoint a board of directors, and that board of directors is supposed, and the staff who would be appointed are the people who are responsible for day-to-day management of the entity, as you would have, let's say, when government set up the Insurance Corporation of Barbados many years ago, or you set up Barbados Mortgage Finance. Years ago, we had the Barbados National Bank. These are entities where, for example, National Insurance is supposed to have they have appointed, you know, they operate with a board of directors and that kind of thing. So you see, it says there shall be a board of directors responsible for policy and general administration, including appointment and management of staff, etc., etc. The board may delegate to the chairman or committee of the board or CEO such of its functions as it thinks expedient, and so on. So theoretically, government, as in a minister or ministers or cabinet, should not be involved in the day-to-day decisions once you have created and appointed those officials. Should not. That's all I say. But you see, and as I said, I listened carefully to the angle that the leader of the opposition went, and contrary to what I think it was Minister Cadell who tried to describe his comments as a stream of consciousness, and I know the parties and political games that are played in the House and in the Senate and so on. But in reality, as a person listening on, my thinking was, he's saying, okay, you've told us what this is supposed to be. Let me tell you now, on behalf of Barbadians, what I don't want it to become. And that is important. And I say that is important because we have a very clear track record, whether it is in relation to the Hope Project, whether it is in relation to some of these other things that we've talked about it in relation. Right now, questions are being asked about the monies borrowed for the revitalization of Kensington, and where is the evidence that is in fact that we would have had, you know, or they have spent the kind of money that they've borrowed. In other words, did Barbadians get the bang for the buck, as they say? You know, did we get its worth? Particularly when we recognize that the country is still paying, because I don't think it has been still paying for the monies
2007
to refurbish Kensington for the 2007 World Cup.
That's right. That's right.
I remember having
right.
a cabinet decision when I was in cabinet to settle. It was about $10 million for the renting of a cruise ship that was supposed to act as a hotel for all of these numbers who were coming.
Right. That's
so
right.
You know, I cannot see. Well, I mean, I can see because he is there and he doesn't have the opportunity to reply because there are no other opposition voices, and there's no reply once you made a statement. But I, as a person, and I like this expression. One of my former late, or may she rest in peace, her comment was, a person with a grain of brain and an ounce of common sense could understand the angle that he chose to utilize the time he had in raising these concerns, because anybody can read the legislation and see what it is supposed to do. What I would have wanted to hear from government would have been how it is going to be rolled out, what kind of time frames are we thinking about, beyond the 10 million that we've heard, how much how much more will be expected within the next year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever the case may be. What perhaps from a policy perspective would be the priority areas of financing? What levels of financing are we looking at? Very large projects overall? Are we going to break down the funds and break down the portfolio in a way that allows major, very large projects, smaller projects, whatever the case may be, so that you have a distribution of the resources in a cross section of projects where you do not find the same the same suspects, as the expression I like to use, the same persons coming forward and benefiting, and so I think the cautions that were issued were justified. The kind of details that we would want to hear, perhaps this may be in the preliminary stages, but and who's really going to champion this in a way, in terms of the people that you put to run the institutions,
Yeah.
And so I think those are the important questions, because the legislation provides the framework under which it will function, but we want to hear more about the operation.
Yeah. Dr. Ferdinand and Ms. McLean, this sounds to me like, a real, when you think of all that has happened before, when you think of the whole project, you think of all the money disappearing, you think these are the wrong set of people, in my humble opinion, for them to be in charge of something like this. I've seen the legislation about the board. I see all the different, the structure that they plan to put in place. But we must remember that our leader has her hand in everything, and everything that she touches, somehow it just doesn't work out. And I am
board too, Marcia. The whole project had a board too.
That's what I'm saying. It just smells like corruption, like a quagmire. It is what I'm seeing is, if I'm not a fortune teller, but what I see in the future of this is corruption. It's another situation where at the end of it, they say, okay, well, we will have to do an investigation. Last night I showed a video of a stadium, a cricket stadium, a brand new, spanking new cricket stadium in Nassau County, in New York, in New York State, and it was a $30 million US, and we were refurbishing, and it's $25 million US to refurbish our Kensington Oval, and we are not seeing where the investment is, how we're going to get back the money or anything. So when we hear about this blue-green bank, all that I'm hearing is corruption. I'm seeing an opportunity for corruption. And that is what the leader of the opposition is saying. And he's really picking up on the sentiments of the people of Barbados. We're worried. We don't trust the government, is what it is, Dr. Ferdy. That's what's going in my mind.
Well, it's funny that you should draw attention to that, Marcia. I raised it. I can't remember if I did on the Wednesday night show. I sat in that stadium to watch the Australia English match, and I was looking around the stadium for 25 million US. I thought I was the only person, so I turned to a young man that was sitting next to me, discovered he was someone that works in the operations aspect of one of our major banks. And with him were two other colleagues. And he said to me, we were just asking the same thing. Now, I can't remember who it was. I believe it was someone in Parliament got up and and to some degree chastise the query of people in terms of the expenditure of the stadium. And I indicate that the issue here is not that you put in a bathroom. I spoke to people who went in the bathroom and can't see any changes of $25 million. And the question has to be answered: how was it spent? There's the aspect of transparency and accountability that we keep coming back to.
Yes.
And if I can't trust you, Marcia, with the Hope issue, if I can't trust you with Kensington, how am I going to trust you with a blue-green multi-million-dollar project? And the reality is that since the pandemic has occurred, the trust, and I spoke on this matter, the trust level of people and in their governments around the world has declined dramatically. And it's the same thing here in Barbados. People no longer have trust in governments' words and their theatrics. Maxine, I hear you talking about the performance of Minister Kerry Simmons. I was tempted to interrupt you and ask you if a leopard can change his spots.
No. No.
But he is, and I am sorry to have to say it this way, he is a nasty-mouthed politician at every level, in every environment.
Somebody sent me a message calling him a nasty fellow.
Yeah, what I am going to say here, he's a nasty
so there's
mouth.
concurrence on that.
He's a nasty mouth individual that cannot and you will always find out that when a person cannot debate you on the issues, they try to insult you and call you all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So it is clear from that perspective, Marcia.
Yeah, but if I may just, we look at a comment here from Mega Rude Boy 007, and thank you for the comment. And he says, but Marcia, and those in the comment section, feel free to give your thoughts on the discussion that we're having. He says, but Marcia, you have to recognize that without Mia, there may very well be no grants for resilience.
Not true.
And so
that's not true.
Not true.
Let me just address this here. Let me address it. This is the problem. This right here is a problem, because could it be that because going off your premise, if that is really true, could it be that because she believes that without me there is no grant, is it that why it would appear as for her to have her hands in everything then? Because I brought it to Barbados. Let's go along. Let's go along with what Mega Rude Boy is saying. Is it that is that the reason we feel? People like me, I feel like she has her hands in everything. Somebody who has over 7 ministries or more under them. Is it for that reason, because she believes that big things, as she said, big whatever.
Big works
like
have to come through her.
They have to come through her. So is that the reason why she puts her hands in everything? And don't you see that somebody says here, everything that she has put her hands to, that it has not worked? I want people to think about that. There's nothing that this lady has put her hands to that has worked, because there's a lot of times not enough thought has been put in it. Not that these are bad ideas, but she has a problem in implementing things, in making things really happen. So and I know that and I don't believe this premise. I'm just going along with Mega.
I would respond to him, because I sat for 10 years, and let me preface this by saying successive governments have accessed grant funding from various sources. And I will say this: if you go to the Barbados Water Authority, there was a project financed by, it would have been funds out of the UAE, probably Irina or one of those, to finance. And it was a fund that was agreed to and negotiated on my suggestion when I would have been Minister of Foreign Affairs for the region. It would have been initially $50 million, and that was done in relation to the UAE. And part of those funds went to put in panels. When we looked at the bill, electricity bill for the Barbados Water Authority, it was tremendous. It was horrendous. Let me put it that way. And those resources were intended as part of government's resilience and climate change initiatives to address climate change. One of the things was government was going to be an exemplar and look to use renewable energy, photovoltaics, etc. That money was there, was negotiated on the previous administration. If you go back to the administration before the last one, you would have seen grant funding. And for some reason, Barbadians seem to have believed that Barbados and our relations with the world began when Mia Mottley became prime minister. That's fallacious, But as you said, perhaps there's this notion that if I bring it, I control it. But it does not work like that, because it's not supposed, and this is a concern, because if, for example, I've seen funds donated to the government of Barbados, and these were supposed to benefit poor Barbadians, and rather than put those resources under the control of the persons in the social care ministries, welfare officers who would know families, etc., funds were allocated to politicians. Now, the danger with that is that a politician will help his or her supporters first or only. You understand, Marcia? So that is where grant funding is best placed in agencies where, as I said, there's transparency and so on. But so that comment by Mega Rude Boy 007. She is prime minister, but she has the biggest cabinet in Barbados, and the use of ministers is to allocate responsibilities. So I'm not sure when you say she's prime minister what that means, but
that is the problem. That is the problem. She is the PM, Mega Rude Boy, and that is where we're having the challenge, because we're not seeing the kind of leadership and governance that would be required of the PM. There's something in leadership called delegation, and we're not seeing that happen. There's good governance and good management, and that is not what is happening. As Miss McLean just talked about, grant money. You don't grant money is supposed to be handled a particular way so that there's good accountability for the money, and we're not seeing those kinds of things happening. If she was operating as a good prime minister, we would not need now to go back to do investigation into Hope funds, where $60 million is eaten out of a fund, blown out of a fund, and as Ralph Thorne says, not even a rat has lived in one of those houses. Nobody has lived in a house that she has paraded through. They walk through they set up all the samples of the housing, and the people walk through and you think, and so that is the problem. She is the PM, and we are saying we are not trusting her leadership skills, her governance, her ability to govern and to manage. She has not yet shown those to us. That's the problem right there.
Marcia, let me say that, the what's the word you use? The titles that I carry because of an appointment. That appointment has brought me into an environment where I receive offers of grant funding to government. If I opened up my computer to you now, I would show you an offer by and I think you mentioned something just now, Maxine, about UAE or something of that nature. I could open up an email in my possession right now with funding for the Barbados government, and the people are very clear on the matter. I mean, it's in type. It must not be given to government. That's what they've typed. They have indicated clearly it must go directly, where possible, to the beneficiaries of our funding. In other words, if it's, for example, the social services of the country, it must go directly to the persons in the they're not even prepared to give it to the social services to disperse. They want it going straight to the people themselves through the processes, whatever they are. And that in itself, I know, is a little challenging. I believe, Maxine, you would agree, to navigate without going through all the government agencies and government processes. But the reason they have said it clearly in writing is because we know of the corruption level in your country. That's clearly here. And this is not from, if I call the name, it is from a, let me make sure I have it right. It's from a Saudi Arabian family office, which I am not going to call because it is NCDs that I have had to engage and sign. That's non-disclosure, NDCs, right? Non-disclosure agreement, NDAs.
NDA, non-disclosure agreements. Yeah.
Yes, non-disclosure agreements that I cannot divulge. There's certain persons that I can divulge information to, and that's specifically noted in the document.
Yeah.
And they are clear on the matter. So obviously, I mean, Marcy, you're talking about people overseas who know of this. Those people are not stupid, you know. Those people do their research.
Yeah, but
they're
look
not
at
just going
what
to up,
Jabard
you
is
know.
saying. This is what Jabard is saying, and this is his allegations. He's saying his opinion is that could it be that the PM hands in all the big projects because of the amount of money? Could it be? Could it be? These are questions.
And they should be answered. They're questions that should be answered.
The reason we're asking, the reason those kinds of questions are being asked is because of Exhibit A, whole project. We're just naming one where we can clearly see. What about the steel houses? Listen, don't let us start to list the issues right now. And those are the reasons why you're going to see the leader of the opposition asking those questions. This lady, this prime minister, she's very good at speaking. She's very good at networking. And that's about it. In my opinion, I cannot see where she's implementing and where she's managing anything. She's seeing it through to the end. I can't see it. It's not happening. And that's where the issue is. But we had a statement from the Gambian MP, and I wanted us to look at that. And I would love for everybody, all over 1,000 of us on to, Dr. Ferdinand, if we could jump into this discussion tonight of the MP. As we told you, Mr. Franklin has a meeting with workers tonight, I'm being told. And so it doesn't seem, it's not going to be able to make it on. But let's just bring up this, if Dave could put that on the screen for us with the Gambian, I'm not sure who has it. Dave? But this is a statement that was made by the Gambian politician, and I think it's coming up now. Yeah, let's hear it.
Looking at the Honorable Minister's statement and looking at the budget, I think that our government does not love this country. They do not have the feeling to nurture our children in this country. Honorable Speaker, $6 billion in salaries alone, not in administrative cost. Honorable Speaker, and we say we are a poor country. Honorable Speaker, the median age in this country is 19 years old. We should consider the life and the livelihood of our children. We should be investing in education. We should be investing in health rather than paying ourselves, feeding ourselves out of the poor people of this country. I will start with this August Assembly, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, to see the salary of the Honorable Speaker increased from 658 million to 658,000 to 1,560,000. I feel ashamed to call myself an honorable member, Honorable Speaker. I gave myself for service. I did not give myself for the poor people to feed me and my family, Honorable Speaker. When I saw this, I felt embarrassed. I did not want to come to this budget session because I said to myself, there is no need, because we are just sharing the cake in our pockets, going home, feeding ourselves. Not only that, but to see the responsibility allowance, the residential allowance, the robing allowance, and all those for the representatives of the people, it is embarrassing for me to go back to my poor constituency and tell them that the meager resources of this country, I am paid that much at your expense. I took an oath, Honorable Speaker, to serve and to give back to my society, not to enrich myself. And even if I go to the Constitution, Honorable Speaker, it says that we shouldn't deliberately enrich ourselves. And increasing our salaries is deliberately enriching ourselves. And that is an embarrassment. I think as a National Assembly, we should not accept any salary increment. It was in this August Assembly that we sat and discussed the salaries of the ministers and denied them, even though they went behind our backs and increased it. That is their problem. We offered ourselves for service, Honorable Speaker. We were not appointed. We were elected and we offered ourselves, Honorable Speaker. And I think we should think of our people when we do the budget. I'm not allowing you to observe me. I don't have that time. When you are on your own feet, observe yourself, please. Thank you. Honorable Speaker, when we go to the office of the President, Honorable Speaker, I have seen new units, ICT units, being established at the office of the President. The office of the President has, I think, whatever they call it, the person that does her public speech or whatever, that lady. Why would he need another ICT? Why would the Honorable, His Excellency want 6 advisors? How many ministers does he have in addition to the new ministries? If the President is telling us that the ministers are not good enough, I told this August Assembly here last year when we did the budget, if he is implying that his ministers are not good, let him sack them and apply and appoint advisors. The ministers, according to our constitution, should be competent enough to advise him on any policy under their ministries. And if they are not good enough, and if that is what he's implying, that they are not good enough, let him sack them and appoint advisors in their place. But as a poor country, we cannot be paying ministers and be paying advisors and be paying deputy advisors. Come on, we are a poor country. Instead of thinking of ourselves, 6 billion in emoluments alone. Come on. Honorable Speaker, I think we should think of the Gambian people, not our pockets. We say that when you are a politician, your skin starts shining, and I'm starting to believe it. Once you are appointed a minister, before 2 months, you marry a second wife. You start buying homes abroad. Come on, at the expense of who? At the expense of the poor Gambian? No way, Mr. Speaker. I am ashamed to call myself a National Assembly member. To be honest, I did not want to contest again. The only reason I contested was to show them that I can come back to this August Assembly. And I did against all odds, Mr. Speaker. If they want, they can die seeing me at the Assembly, but I will come.
Wow. This you know.
Wow.
The first statement, Dr. Ferdinand, that she said,
wow.
I think we do not love our people.
Wow.
And I know this is something that we've been passing around for about a week. People have been passing it and sending it to me. And I thought it would be great, Dr. Ferdinand, to discuss it tonight. And what are your thoughts? What's going in your mind? And then let's hear from Ms. McLean. I'm going to ask the people in the chat to put your thoughts down. Let's talk about it and compare it to what we hear, what we know of is happening in Barbados. Dr. Ferdinand.
Well, the first thing going through my mind is I wish we had some politicians in Parliament with her intestinal fortitude. That's the first thing that went through my mind. The second thing, Marcia, it's funny that you would air this video tonight, because this afternoon when I was on the road, I saw a brand new Mercedes-Benz electric vehicle, ML something. I couldn't get the number. And I had to ask the question, how at a time when Barbadians are going through such pressure economically and financially in our country can government so lavishly demonstrate to the people it doesn't give a damn? Buying BMW 5 Series, BMW electric cars, Mercedes-Benz electric vehicle. Toyota make electric vehicles. Nissan make electric vehicles. Hyundai make electric vehicles. Wouldn't it not have sent a better message as a government to the people that we are in this with you? But instead of that, that is you all. You all can go through whatever the France you all are going through, but we are going to live the lavish lifestyle. Give you a grant. When they leave office, they leave those vehicles. I understand that. And an ML vehicle is a statutory board vehicle. I also understand that. And that is why I'm saying the demonstration that I'm seeing from this government simply says to Barbadians, I don't give a damn about you. I don't care. Because if you did, I would see you in a what they call it, PVE or something like that, Nissan or Toyota. But I'm seeing you, Marcia, I am a car man. You know this. You know I'm a car man. And the Mercedes that I saw today is the latest.
Right.
The latest Mercedes-Benz electric. And don't worry to tell me that you bought it because of its pricing, because in no way duty-free that it could come close to the price of a duty-free Toyota.
Yeah.
So to me, when I listen to this woman, I say, I wish to God we had a dozen of her in Parliament today.
Yeah. Let me just read. Thank you, Dr. Ferdinand. Well said. Let me just read a few things from Chesterfield, from the people, and then I'm going to. Well, Rude Boy said that this is not Barbados, okay? But Chesterfield said, no, that is true representation. God bless her, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
and Pedro's. Let me just read some of there are some comment. Comment says somebody wrote Jabard says I was watching an extract. Somebody changed it. I'm sorry. I was watching an extract on England, and it was said that a minister should not have millions of dollars in bank accounts of their own when their pay is not that amount. Oh Lord. Oh, Lord.
Where the integrity legislation?
Fairy Gittin says we need her in Barbados. And again, Mega Rude Boy said we don't have that issue. I don't know if anybody who agrees with him. Fairy Gittin said we need to send that to the Prime Minister. Someone said play that at the march. Edwin Price says it sounds like Barbados. Spending wild and poor people suffering, which is what Dr. Ferdinand was saying about the vehicle. It's not that you want people to be driving and beating down cars, but come on, there must be a limit. I mean, we're, you got to convince us that you care about us. What? Oh, Lord have mercy. Somebody says, Ramim says the government should establish a soap industry. Cause all is suds and bubbles in the industry, in the laundry. We need to start to deep clean Parliament, Lord God. You see, we need. I come to you, Mr. Pratt. Listen, you're all in this show tonight. I want you all. Sometimes we don't let you speak enough, right? So let's them should ride hippie
Marcia, if they did that in my time, I'd be in trouble because I can't ride a bicycle. I grew up on Black Rock Main Road and trying to learn to ride before buses came out at 6 o'clock. It didn't work out.
Said Luciana, sing the song "There's No Love in the World." I'm deliberately reading the comments, Ms. McLean, before we come back to you, because I want the people to be all involved in what's going on. Lemuel Tull says, I saw recently that the president of Burkina Faso reduced minimum salaries by 30%. While this young woman in Gambia is saying that even the speaker's fee, did you calculate it? It was almost 100% increase. It went from
668,000
to
nearly a million.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And somebody says here, every time I see those BMWs, I say champagne taste with Mobby pocket. That's how this government operating.
No, Marcia, let me interrupt you for a minute. I am responsible for the BMWs being introduced to the judges. That was my initiative. But at a time when Barbados did not have the crises that we have at present. That was back in 1998, 99 or something along that line. And I got BMWs, and I will say it publicly now, I got BMW 7 Series for the judges at 78,000 Barbados dollars. Because BMW had a special pricing for government and government ministers, and I negotiated with them for the judges in the table of precedent to receive them at that price. So the government BMWs were not 600 and nothing thousand. There were 60, 72, 73,000, I think, Barbados dollars.
Yeah.
Because that's what I negotiated for.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Ferdinand. When I look here at what Ruba is saying, and this is our problem here. This is the problem that we have. And that we've got to come out. We need to be able to discuss politics and not be partisan, okay? So whether, I want to tell you something, that whether, regardless of who is in power, we should be able to sit down and discuss spending. You understand? It has nothing to do. So don't tell me, don't, when you start to do this, you're belittling your comments and you're belittling your contribution, because we're not speaking objectively. Begin to look at everything, all right? And not become partisan. We are talking about government spending. We came from Gambia, and we are now looking at Barbados and what is happening. Nobody's talking about what happened in the administration before. We have a government right now. All right, so let's talk about that. Ms. McLean, you were in government. You were a senator. You are the a minister of foreign affairs. What are your thoughts about what you hear from this Gambian MP?
I think she's expressing concern. The person who mentioned that was not an issue, I was going to ask him what exactly he was referring to. The reality is, and what I would say is that some of the extravagance that I see in some African states you don't see here. But I also did a calculation, because the currency in the Gambia is called a Dalasi. And $1 million Dalasi is about $14,755 US. So when you do the calculation, but as you said, it went from, that is what the figures were, and that is probably a basic thing. But what I would want to say is that we should be able, and you're correct to say this, I know that a lot of people will talk about salaries. And if I look at Barbados, because in the private sector, the salaries are substantially higher, but you choose to go and work in government, those are the salaries that you get. If you don't like them, you go elsewhere. That is my take on these things. Correct. I want to say something about vehicles, because if you remember, when Arobara came back into power the last time he served as prime minister, he sold off a whole set of government vehicles, because he found that a lot of money had been put into expensive vehicles. You mentioned the vehicles for judges, and that's fine. What I would say, however, is that where you are purchasing a vehicle, which is essentially it's owned by the people of Barbados, one of the things you should consider is there may be a time when, let's say you change it after X years, change it after X plus 2 years, so that you extend the life of that arrangement. I am still yet, for me, electric vehicles, the verdict is still out for me in terms of what's happening in Barbados.
Me too.
Have we demonstrated that, given the cost of these things, that we are getting, those are wise investments? Because we're hearing about all kinds of complications in certain climates and that kind of thing. So I am saying that even if you want to do these things, you may also get a hybrid or something. But as Pastor Ferdinand said, do you go for the Rolls Royce, the most expensive one, or you look for something, especially where you have to buy a fleet, and so I don't understand, why we feel the need. Those clearly look like vehicles for judges, based on the number and the license plates. Yeah. But, I think that we have to put things into proper context and look at the situation, because at the end of the day, we are seeing that there are issues of unemployment, regardless of what statistics they put to me. We encounter it on a day-to-day basis, and we all, we have to look at these things. And somebody mentioned consultants every time you turn around. And I can tell you categorically that the numbers of consultants being employed are higher than they have ever been in Barbados, ever, under any administration. Because when you start listing them, you would see that. And I just want to make a comment. You did say, Marcy, we're not talking about the last prime minister. The prime minister, when you replace a vehicle, and remember what I said, I can tell you that the vehicle that was replaced prior to Prime Minister Stewart leaving, he had a situation, I think one of the door handles was falling off or something. He doesn't walk away with that vehicle. It is not his. It stays to be used by his successor. But at the end of the day, we have to look and ask ourselves, what is that the best way to spend it? Is that the only option? And can we be less extravagant? That's yes, I think
that it's the extravagance not that you expect that they're to walk to work, but you need to, and that's why people. So some people say to me, Marcia, you seem like you're fixated on Errol Barrow. I'm not fixated on Errol Barrow. Some of my people think that it is just the character of the man. It's a man who decided when Barbados was going through a rough time, said, you know what, I'm going to fly economy. Not that it was the best thing for him, because he ran into some trouble flying economy. But that is what, and he said to the ministers were to fly economy because he said Barbados was going through such a hard time. Why are we going to take up money and fly? We're going to use money to fly first class. Those are the kinds of things that I want to hear from my leaders. I don't want my leader flying all over in these big aircraft all about the place and in private jets, and all we're hearing about these lavish parties and the kinds of food that they're eating. That's not right. When they're neighbors of us from us, that we have to be given some food when the evening comes, and we have to be helping them. We take from our own cupboards. Some of them, they could take care of so many people with the amount of money that they have, the properties that they already have. It's these kinds of things. And in that little video that we watched, one of the things that this Gambian MP was concerned about was the number of advisors or consultants. So you see, Dr. Ferdinand, we're not off base.
Same thing there.
Yeah, but we're not off base in asking why so many advisors. And listen to her questioning, gentle people, viewers. Her questioning is, are the ministers not good enough? Why do you have so many consultants? They're asking that in Gambia, and we're asking that in Barbados. People are thinking that we are made with that. We're wrong to ask those questions.
Maxine, let me just expand a little bit on the initiative that I did with the judges. The arrangement with the judges, Maxine, was that every 3 years the cars were returned to us, and a new fleet would be handed to them. The cars had to be serviced by us on a regular basis during those 3 years, and we would recoup the costs in terms of the resale value after 3 years. And in that it was bought duty-free for only $78,000, it means that we could sell them for considerably more, less than a national would pay for it, but we would recoup the expense of both the vehicle we supplied for them and the new vehicle that it was replaced with. That is what the arrangement was. I don't know what it is now, but the only cost to the taxpayers that was engaged was the very first cost. And that was a policy I established in my trips to Munich in Germany with the BMW board of directors when I went on my training. I don't know what happens now. Okay, but I still maintain that if I was in the business now, I probably would not engage that, because given the austerity measures that the IMF have implemented on us, I feel that there's a need for the government to demonstrate some sense of relationship with the people by being a bit more conservative in their expenditure. And that is the only challenge I have here. I don't know what the arrangement is. I'm not a part of the company anymore, or the new company that has been set up. But I do know that was my arrangement I had in place, so that in truth and in fact, the taxpayers did not have to pay for those vehicles every 3 years.
Right.
Yeah. Just reading some of the comments here. And then we need to talk about this, the teachers, the SICKOUT at Wesley Hall Junior School. I was waiting to hear from someone, was checking it out for me, to tell me exactly what the reason was for that SICKOUT. So if anybody knows and can let us know. But the Jefferson Ward says, Mom, know that the kitchen cabinet don't have in anything substantial. So she bring in the consultants instead. I mean, these comments are just hilarious. Okay. Marcia says they're living high on the hog and poor people scraping for scraps. That's just how it feels to me. That's how it feels to me, right? And Landed Eagle says consultants are just another name for friends. And we have to listen. This is what the people feel. This is what they believe. They're not seeing the benefit of the consultants. So then, Emerson Bob says Mr. Barra cared about Barbadians. Display and pretend to care. That is the difference between the two. That's his opinion. And he has a right to share his opinion. Right? And somebody says, why asking the question, why can't judges drive a nice Toyota like everyone else? Marcia says, new limousines and buses falling apart and scarcely any on the road. They just had some new buses, though, I think, in time for the World Cup, I think.
Yes, but Marcia, realize that the replacement batteries after a period of 10 years for an electric car is approximately $50,000.
See, this is my concern. That's why I said that for me the verdict is still out on these vehicles, because at the end of the day, what are we, apart from that replacement battery costs, how are the operations of these things impacted by the weather conditions and that kind of thing? I mean, I saw a comment about the buses, and my question is, what has been the performance of the new buses here and about electricity buses elsewhere? Because I think that there's a risk in investing in all of one type, especially where the technology is still quote unquote relatively new, and being applied in situations such as this. But
but Maxine, you're absolutely correct, because I realized in one town in the US where a gentleman had a fleet of trucks, he bought a fleet of electric trucks, and it shut down the entire electrical grid of his truck of his town when he started to charge all of them together at night. They actually use more megawatts than the entire city charging his fleet of trucks, and he got rid of them and he went back to diesel trucks. But the other aspect that you have to take into consideration is not just that, but what about the production and the disposal of these things? The first thing is the production. The production is fundamentally lithium, which is predominantly mined in Africa using child labor. I hear nobody talking about that. And the disposal of these batteries is another matter, because lithium does not disintegrate anywhere. It's one of the most pollutant products you can find on the planet. Where are you going to send them? Where are you going to how are you going to dispose of them? Have you ever tried to dispose of a telephone battery?
But the thing is, you have the question, and this is even before we get to those big batteries in terms of vehicles and so on. There are a lot of batteries and things around here, and I'm not sure we have protocols that are followed, whether it's telephone batteries, computer batteries, and all of these things. How do we, or how should we dispose of these things?
Yes, exactly.
I think people just and I would say something. I have them sitting around here, and I'm trying to figure out what should I do with them. But you've raised an important issue. In fact, you mentioned Africa, and I don't know, Marcia probably may want to say something about this SICKOUT. But in fact, there's now a race among the developed countries to access the raw materials that go into these things, because some of the materials are found in limited locations. But that's another discussion. Marcia, in terms of that school strike, I just heard the news this evening. I don't know if either you or Pastor Ford, and I heard it, but I think they said there were about 26 teachers who were absent today, and the union was trying to find out. Now that raised my hackle, so to speak, because I am trying to understand whether unions, and unfortunately Casper is not here, he's busy, whether the unions, the two other unions that we know, the Barbados, there's not only two, the three unions, because you have Barbados Union, the teachers probably may be involved in this one, but are they playing catch up with their members when it comes to dealing with industrial issues, industrial relations issues that are confronting their members? Because it seems to be like they seem not to be out front dealing with the concerns. So it'd be interesting to hear what the union's findings are.
Yeah. Well, let me just read Starcom their report at 1:32 p.m. I don't know when you heard, if you heard the news in the evening.
5:30.
5:30. Okay, so let me just read the 1:32. At least this will give us some context. It says teachers sick out at Wesley Hall Junior. Wesley Hall Junior School has been forced to close at midday due to an apparent sick out by staff. The Ministry of Education says in a statement that the Deputy Chief Education Officer, Glenn Price, was informed by the school's principal, Herbert Gittins, that 22 members of the teaching staff were out sick. The statement added that by 10:25 a.m., only 5 of the 32 teachers had reported to work, which was not enough to effectively handle the class sizes. So that is what that is all that came in. We don't know why. I know I was speaking to somebody within that high up in one of the unions to find out, and they were saying they were investigating. So, I get the answer. They said, okay, so here's the answer. It came in at 9:44 p.m. Rat and termite infestation.
Whoa.
So I want us to think of this, gentle people, and this is where I might be naive. I've never been in government or anything like that. But I'm thinking, if there's so much money going around, why would a place like a school, the teachers had to not go to work, 22 of them? The reason is this rat and termite infestation in the schools, in Wesley Hall Primary School. A rotten banister that is proving dangerous to hold on to. So they're afraid of their own safety. The place is rotting away. Okay? But we're buying big cars and we're doing all of these things. Inadequate security. One guard for both schools. The public has easy access on and through the compound, and we are aware of the kind of environment that we are now living in Barbados. They have been promised repair work and it has not been followed through, is what I'm hearing from very good source. I understand that the school meals workers were washing up and a rat dropped from the roof into the wash water. So they were washing up the dishes that your children eat from, the pots that they cook for your children, and a rat, it is alleged, drop from the roof and drop into the pot, into the washing up, where they're washing up the wares.
Wow.
That is what it's alleged that has happened at the Wesley Hall Junior School. Do you understand, Barbadians? So people will say, why are they coming up? No, we have to let you know what is going on, because you notice this was not in the newspaper. The teachers and other staff, they don't feel safe on the compound. and they have used their democratic right. They've used their human rights. They have stood up as Barbadians instead of being passive. They decided we are going to stick out today. And I say yes to them. Very good job.
That's serious, Marcia. I mean,
Yep.
and we're talking about the adults, but think of the children. Somebody said, I mean, I shouldn't laugh. Good thing they were not boiling soup. Sorry. No, but if you don't laugh, you really would.
Why you all let me laugh over a serious thing? This has to do with
no, but that's what I'm saying. If you don't laugh, you would cry. It's very serious.
Years ago, Marcia, when I was really excited about, the days of the knights, Sir Lancelot and whatnot, there used to be druids and witches and so on that used to concoct a brew. And I remember one being concocted, batwing gravy and lizard gizzard. So maybe it was something along that line. I don't know.
But you know what? On a serious note,
no, but this is not acceptable.
But it's not acceptable. And
no, it is not.
I don't want us to. There could be a teacher watching tonight, and because we're laughing, it's not that it's not serious.
No.
It's poor. It's very poor, and this is
it just doesn't sound real
that we have been receiving from the Minister of Education, and it goes back to the leadership. It goes back all the way to the leadership. You got to follow that, right? All the way to the leadership. And this is what is happening in our schools. And then we're talking, stuffing in our noses and talking about junior schools and
middle
we're going to be
schools.
learning about robotics and all of these things and all these reforms and rats running.
And you got rats running through all the school, Ratatouille running through all the school.
Huh? What?
I'm sorry. Listen, Marcia. And I say to anybody watching, we are not trivializing this. But
no, it's the people it's the people in the official opposition, the viewers.
No, but
Bajans are the most hilarious. No, I don't want us to laugh so much and we don't take it seriously because that's part of our problem. We love to
but
take it very
serious. But you're correct, Marcia. We have a minister of education. Really, we know she should have been fired ever since. She should have been fired. There's no question about this. And you are presiding over the worst maintenance program of anything in the education department. I mean, what are you doing?
I'm sorry, Dr. Ferdinand. I'm not hearing a word you're saying.
No, but I know. But listen, Emerson is just put in the point there that the population, the occupants of the school are exposed to leptospirosis.
Yes.
It is frightening.
Part of it,
because at the end of the day, you take your child into the school, you as a teacher, you as a security guard, you as the school meal attendant.
Jesus,
my God. Anything. Because you don't know, I mean, what if something is dropping out of the roof, you don't know what's running across those table, desks and chairs, the office, the counter in which they serve. I mean, I'm sure that with all of these people, the staff would try to do the best, especially let's say in where they serve school meals and all of this. But this is bothersome. The other thing that I thought I heard about the fencing of playing fields and everything. Why is the school exposed? Because that's one of the things I think you said. The whole issue of the security. These are things that should be priority. We are talking about. And you mentioned it, Marcy, in terms of educational reform, bringing some alien suggestions to Barbados, things that nobody can show us what problems they're seeking to address and how they plan to solve the problem. But basic things like these, which should be part of ongoing maintenance. Yes, God knows exactly. what the conditions around the school is. There a need for debushing? What is happening? Yeah. These are the kind of things that we need to be looking at.
And someone made a comment here. It's a good comment, not a funny one, but they were saying that these are. I'm trying to find it. A very sensible comment that these are like fixing the school. These are like tangible things that we can actually do. The climate change and so on, you know, it's kind of for a lot of us here, Miss McLean, to be honest, it's kind of out there, you know, and so we are chasing after these things and we are talking a lot about this. But when you have your little ones in school and rats falling from the ceiling and all of these, the teachers are unsafe, these are things, you know, that we can fix. We can fix the tangible things that we can actually fix, you know.
I don't separate the two. In fact, I would say that part of the problem is that you have to ask yourself, why is this infestation of these things and so on. And I don't separate them. I'm just thinking that these are things that are ignored for whatever reason, because people have their priorities wrong. There should be school budgets. I mean, I can tell you that there is a department in the ministry which deals with the buildings and all of these things. And so, for example, it's me saying no fencing at the schools, but they fence the Gull Hill Pavilion. That's the point I was making, that they fence these pavilions.
Priority.
But you have a situation where there's ongoing violence, people running off the street, running behind one another with knives and guns and all kinds of things. And if a school is a thoroughfare, then it becomes a problem. You know, if a person can easily transit the complex, and then there's one guy. I mean, so the question is, where are the priorities?
Yeah.
And there should be budgets for these things. You know, where are the priorities?
Yeah.
It's not an either-or situation, you know.
And I think that the people, if we as Barbadians can somehow, and you know, it's difficult for Barbadians, because you grow up, your grandmother was voting one way, your great grandmother voted a way, and you grow up and you line up behind, you know, DLP, and you grow up and you line up. So you see issues with those glasses on, you know, that's how you discuss issues. But I think that if we could just, I mean, there should be some issues though that we can discuss, you know, Miss McLean, and not see through party eyes. And when it comes on to our children and something like education, can we just take off those kinds of glasses, please? Can we remove all the party stuff and to just see it for what it do? You want your child to be going to a school, come on, where the rat is dropping from the ceiling into the pots? You know, I mean, come on. Do you want a school that is open up and not enough security that a gunman can walk off the street? You know, I have to share this with you, viewers and Dr. Ferdinand and Mr. That on Saturday I was at the march, and we are closing off now. We're going to, going into talking a little bit about violence, because there was another shooting today in St. John. Yeah, there's another shooting in St. John today, Dr. Ferdinand. And this little boy, he was, there are three of them, and they were selling juices. And they were all could be about 10, the eldest one about 10. I know their mom. I won't call the name of the mom. And she left them there. And because she knows that they're safe with us all there. And there are three of them selling, he and his cousins, right? And the youngest cousin, I think, I wanted to check the age of the child before I came on. But I am going to give him say 7, because I want to be conservative. I don't want to exaggerate. So say it could be less than 7, but I'm going to say 7 years old. And I was on the truck. I got off the truck, and he came up to me and he said to me, "Mom, what is your name?" And I said, I'm Marcia. And this is after they're peddling me to buy drinks from them, buy some juices. And then he says, then he asked my name. I said, Marcia. He stopped and he thought about it. So I'm looking at me, little boy, you know. He said, "You're not." He said, "You're not afraid?" I said, "Afraid for what?" He said, "You're not a celebrity?" No, I'm not any celebrity.
Oh, wow.
Hold a minute. No, that's not the point. He says, he said,
to him.
He said, "You don't have any bodyguards?"
To him.
He is 7. I'm going to give him the higher age. He could be less than 7.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
But because I don't know, I don't want to say, I'm going to be conservative. 7 years old. He says, "You don't have any bodyguard, ma'am?" I said, "No." I said, why do I need a bodyguard? It says you see how Barbados is now? He is 7.
Yeah.
And I
What's
watched.
happening?
He is 7. I've left there and
Processing it. He's processing it.
this is how I would have heard.
Wow.
This is how we would have thought in my area growing up in Jamaica. We would have seen enough killing and guns that we would be concerned. And the little boy was literally concerned for me. I don't know why he assumed I was a celebrity and I needed protection. And he was just, and he kept looking at me and thinking, oh God, how could you be out here and you don't have bodyguards?
Yes.
And,
But Marcia,
and this is Barbados. And the last thing I'd say, Dr. Purdy, is that I saw a video today where the police was in a community and they were arresting about 4 guys. There were, lots of police vans and so on. And there were so many little children out on the road watching what was going on. And I said to myself, what kind of Barbados are we creating here? What's going on? That little 7, that you are putting images in their heads. Guys, don't get stuck on this celebrity thing. The point is that he believes that the kind of Barbados that I'm living in, that I should not be walking about without security, without security.
But you see, Marcia, that's how he sees you. And it's not a case that you say a celebrity. He sees you as a person who is, in a sense, going up against the establishment. And he's thinking to himself, that's the only way he knows how to express it. He sees you as a celebrity. And he's thinking to himself, but for somebody who's doing what you're doing without security, are you serious? This happened with me once, Marcia, when I was walking back down from the when we had the march up to Independence Square, and I passed a young man in Cheapside along the Galvanized, and he called me back, and he said, "Can I have a word with you a minute?" And I said, "Sure." I went back, and he said, "Do you have bodyguards? Do you have security?" I said, "No." He said, "Boy, you joking with what you all are doing? And you don't have bodyguards?" This is the kind of sense that we are getting in Barbados right now, and that is unfortunate. And I don't hear government addressing it. I don't hear government addressing it, period, and not seriously in terms of what do we do? How do we address this? And I must also say, Marcia, and I'm sorry to have to say this, but I remember some years ago when we were having a lot of deaths on the highways and we were having a lot of crime in the country. The churches of this country came together in the gymnasium, over 120 pastors together on the platform, and we prayed. And for several months thereafter, the only thing that happened on the highway was fender benders, and the crime declined. Now, people may say that there's no connection, but we believe there was. And this is why I am deeply concerned that right now, with what we're facing in the country, why are we not seeing the churches coming together? Even if they want to march on their own, we don't have a problem with that. Go ahead and do it on your own. But for God's sake, come together and march for a purpose. Because I understand faith without works is dead. So now I don't want to be a part of a march that's not going around and just praising God. I want to be a part of a march that is going to be implementing God's agenda for this country and praying for the protection of our children, praying for the protection of our borders, because these are the things that we're exposed. Where's the church?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ferdinand, and that's a good way to close. That's a good one to close on. Ms. McLean, what are your thoughts as we close tonight?
I for me, I listened to what the little fellow say. The boy is a little boy, and there's one thing to recognize, that there are people out there. I mean, he saw you, as he said, a celebrity, somebody who is out there in the public and so on, but it is his assessment of the safety situation in Barbados that is worrying for me.
Yes.
Yes, this notion of being protected, because you see, I thought of you, and then I thought of bodyguards being used in another situation with all the violence that's happening. And so for a 6 or 7 or 8 or even 10-year-old to be preoccupied with the need to protect yourself because you could be in danger says something about what preoccupies him, what's on his mind at this point in time. And those should not be the concerns of a little boy.
Not of a 7-year-old.
You know, that is worrying. That's worrying.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is worrying. And that video, I watched the video that I saw several times today. And the reason I watched it, Barbadians, because it reminded me of how I grew up and the kind of things that I saw around me. And one of the reasons that I chose to, you know, I was happy that my children were going to be raised in Barbados, my 3 boy children, you know, and I'm thinking of those children who are now being raised. And that's why we go out on the streets. Really. You know, I don't need to go on the streets, you know. I mean, I don't need to, we don't, none of us here, we need to be doing this. You know, our lives were quite fulfilled outside of doing this, right, Dr. Ferdinand?
Oh, yes.
But we're here and we're doing this. And on Saturday, this is a good time to talk about the march on Saturday. We have a few little announcements. We have the march, and there is a national discussion on crime, and I think Dave has a flyer. And while he's looking for the flyer for that, I want to just invite people to the march. Come out, show your presence, stand up for something. Be like those teachers at Wesley Hall. You know, that they stood up for something today and decide they're not going in. And let's support them. Come out to the march on Saturday, 10 o'clock. Right there at Redmond's Drive. We're going to be there at, and it's right at the lights there. That's where we're going to be, Redmond's Drive. And we go to the Independence Square. We're not going to stay in Independence Square, but we're going to educate and motivate and inspire the people on the road about you know the cybercrime bill. Continue to teach as we are doing that. I realize that so many of them, they don't know. And they stop and they're listening, and more people are connecting to us. We see them on the road, and they are nodding, and they are appreciating, and they're listening to what it is that we're saying. Okay, on Thursday there is going to be a national dialogue on crime, causes, and solutions, and I'm going to be one of the speakers, and we're not seeing it, Dave. There, and it's going to be at the Grand Salle. Let me read the information clearly because I can't really see it really well. It's Thursday evening, actually, at 6 p.m. at the Grand Salle Central Bank building, and it's a national dialogue, crime causes and solutions. And this is, as far as I know, this is by the opposition office. This is it's coming out of the opposition's office. So I'm going to ask you, Lumumba will be there. Dr. Derek Allen, he's a specialist in this area, really. And the other persons, I'm not familiar with them, and I'm not able to read the stuff. I need to make it bigger. Okay, Mr. Bertie, thank you, Dave. Mr. Bertie Hines will be there as well. I don't have a bio on these wonderful speakers.
He was a deputy commissioner of police.
Deputy commissioner of police.
And he teaches criminology.
And he teaches criminology.
Or used to. I don't know if he still does at KFL.
Okay. And that Miss Rosemary Allen, we would know her from CBC. She's going to be the moderator. And Dr. Derek Allen, I mean, I just would love to sit at the feet of this man to hear. He's very well learned and have traveled and have done lots of different, led different discussions and so on on this issue. And there's Lumumba Batson who, has lived it, and have come out to tell the tales and worked with young people. He's done several programs here in Barbados and has quite a number of young people that he's worked with over the years. And that's me there. And then there is what's the name of this gentleman? I'm not able to see it.
I'm not seeing it. No, you have to go up. Winston Easton Branch.
Winston Branch.
Similar to Lumumba, I believe he's lived in experienced a lot of what they'll be talking about as well.
Yes. And I I never went to jail, but I came out of those ghetto communities, lived around violence and so on myself, and done a lot of programs for young people. But so this is going to be at the Grand Salle on Thursday at 6 o'clock, right? Yes. So we invite you to come out to that. And tomorrow evening there is going to be uh, a discussion with the Calypsonians. The Calypsonians are going to have a discussion tomorrow, Miss McLean and Dr. Ferdinand, and they're looking at the cybercrime bill. And Caswell is going to be one of the presenters there, and Lynette Eastman. And Lynette is a lawyer, and Caswell knows the law very well and understands the bill, and will break it down to the Calypsonians and how the bill passed in its present state might affect them as artists. And I'm trying to get some of the poets to attend as well. It's going to be via Zoom, and I don't know if they can put up that flyer, and we can send you the Zoom link. You're going to see it all through WhatsApp. The Zoom link will be there, and if you want the Zoom link, you can message me at 236-7000 for the Zoom link. So the Calypsonians are going to be discussing all of that, and we're not being very good stewards with time. It's 10:10, and I'm still talking. But it's these ads that we should have put them in the program. We're getting there. We will get there.
Marcia, I heard you mention a couple of things last night. Just as a reminder, you mentioned something about the former Twitter in terms of your show and Telegram Live, because you were not able to air on Facebook. I don't know if you want to repeat any of that.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Ferdinand. I don't promote myself. We're on X. We're on X, formerly known as Twitter, and I know it's going on live there now. But obviously nobody knows us. So you're going to, if you're subscribed to X, I will ask you, even though you watch on YouTube, to find that link and to share it out to people, just to help us, because what we do not want is to is to be relying on YouTube. What if they shut down YouTube? What's going to happen to us? So we're trying to get on other platforms. It's telling me what we're streaming on live on Telegram, but when I go to Telegram, when we go to Telegram, I'm not seeing anything there. So I'm not sure. We probably are not doing that really well at this time. If anybody knows how to go from StreamYard to Telegram, please let us know. We will need to know that. And we're working on trying to get to a point where we can stream to Rumble. So that, and I'm doing all of this, guys, for Barbados. So we will always, Miss McLean, have a platform that we can speak on, because as you know, that we don't have Facebook anymore at this point. If left up to the people, we will be off for 6 months, and so we kind of have that. So we need the multiple platforms. Okay. Yeah. So we want to thank Miss Dr. Ferdinand, everybody, for joining us tonight. Where we do have, I'm seeing the Zoom link is in the chat. So people can copy that Zoom link if you want to come in, if you're an artist and you want to hear about how the cybercrime bill is going to affect you as a creative. Then it'd be great for you to come into that Zoom meeting. All right.
We have 314 likes, so we need to get a few more going to get up to the 500.
Yes, 314. Last night, I think we went up to 400 and something likes. And that show is just, the numbers are just skyrocketing on that show. People are sharing it so much because they really, really enjoyed that show. So, we're asking you to like. You've been enjoying the show, but we ask you just take a moment and like, so that and share. When people get up in the morning, they'll be able to see it. And that's what you can do for the show and for ourselves. We're working together. All right. So we're going to see you on those of you are joining on Tuesday night, the Zoom, and then we're going to see you Wednesday, then Thursday. Oh boy, we're quite busy, and this week. Yes,
week,
Alternative
yes.
News is also on
Thursday.
Yes, yeah. All right. So, who wasn't able to join us tonight? We've always sent the link to everybody. It's who the people who are able to join are able to join. So, well, thank you all so much for being here. Dr. Ferdinand, you want to do the closeout?
Well, it's been great just being here with you guys. I get to be with the ladies alone myself tonight, and don't have to don't have to contend with Caswell. So, but it has, it's been an extremely interesting show, and so much information. I appreciate, Maxine, what you shared concerning that blue-green aspect. I actually started to read up on it while you were speaking, so I'm gonna do some homework. And again, as always, Marcia, your input in terms of the passions and so on that you share. You talk about my passions. Boy, I tell you, your passions are just inspiring. And I really appreciate the support of all of those in the loyal opposition and the coalition of the righteous. I don't want to forget that. So we want to thank all of you for being here tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to share again with you, Marcia. God bless.
Yes, thank you so much, guys. Good night. And I know you want to hear the songs, so we're waiting, and we want to thank you.
Promise us
Sure, it's not that one.
Promise us a better tomorrow. Tell me that it's suffering done. Me a take the vote and let me down. Me a take the vote and let me down. She did only want little dealing, big contracts and not corruption. Me a take the vote and let me down. Me a take the vote and let me down. Barbados is too small for me. My pocket full, now you and job they promise me. And a girl like me want power and more money. You cry transparency, but that's a no for me. Promise us a better tomorrow. Tell me that it's suffering done. Me a take the vote and let me down. Me a take the vote and let me down. She did only want little dealing, big contracts and not corruption. Me a take the vote and let me down. Me a take the vote and let me down.
That maths nor English, pretending to be good. I pretending to be good, just pretending to be good. I pretending to be good, I just pretending to care about people. 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 Pretending, and I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people. And I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people. I'm pretending to be good. And I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people. And I'm pretending to be good at maths nor English. I just pretending to care about people.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye.